It will come out of recess, having recessed on January 7th, 2026. The Senate will come to order. I recognize Senator Birdsell for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the late session.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion to adjourn passes. We are now in the early session. The Senate will be attentive to Senator Birdsell.
She's doing the prayer.
Yes. Our normal minister who's here could not be here today. So Senator Birdsell will read the prayer.
Thank you, Senator. O God, from all power comes, by whose divine will all must abide. We pray to keep everyone safe in the aftermath of yet another New England nor'easter. We thank you for our civil liberties and freedom, for our opportunities and our privileges. We beg of you to bless, assist, and enlighten the senators in this body today and always. May they prove worthy of the confidence placed in them by their fellow citizens. May they be just and upright in their thinking, honest in their actions, and ever be guided by a true conscience in the legislation they propose to vote on. Hold on in your protective hands our military and first responders. Forgive us for all our mistakes and help prepare us by our good deeds for an eternal union with you. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Senator Long will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I want to thank all of you since you've been so busy since the last time we've met. The committee chairs have done a great job of holding many public hearings to get through the number of bills, Senate bills that were filed. So I just want to thank you all for your hard work over the past 3 weeks. We're going to go to the introduction of guests. I'm going to ask Senator McHugh to come up because he has some guests for us today.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm really privileged and honored, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce to you the Milford High School Championship We the People Constitutional Debate class. If they join us in the gallery or in the chamber. Are they here?
They're coming.
And their teacher, Mr. Thomas Lundstedt. They're coming. I'll tell you a little bit about them as they're on their way in. This group of students are some of the most brilliant students that I've ever encountered. I had the privilege of guest teaching their class for one day and helping them prepare another evening. They spend months preparing, and they won the 23rd championship since 1999. Come on up. Where would you like them? Okay. This competition is sponsored every year by the Bar Association. They compete against multiple other high schools at the St. Anselm's New Hampshire Institute of Politics. It's an all-day competition, a constitutional debate. They cite obscure references from every Federalist paper, multiple Supreme Court decisions. It's exhausting. They prepare for months and months and months. And I've frankly never met another group. And here's the most amazing thing to me. This group, there's no senior quarterback that's been doing it for 4 years. They get one shot at this. So they prepare for months and they can never do it again. And they've won it 23 times since 1999, or is this 24?
Like that, yeah.
And this is your third, Mr. Lundstedt?
Yes.
So congratulations to you and to this team. And I just have a quick resolution. The New Hampshire Senate presents a resolution. Be it known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its congratulations to Milford High School in recognition of the winning We the People 2026 State Championship, a competition dedicated to celebrating excellence in civics and the United States Constitution. And be it further known that the New Hampshire Senate extends its best wishes for continued success. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us today.
If you'd like to come forward and if you want to say something, you're more than welcome.
How'd you do it?
Thank you, Madam President, Senators. Could I yield my time to a couple of my students to say a couple of words?
That's fine.
Shay and Olivia, if you mind coming up here.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Senators. I'm Shay Hanson. I'm a senior.
I'm Olivia Scari. I'm also a senior.
But I think we just want to say how much time and effort we put into this. Over Christmas break, for example, we weren't in school for 2 weeks, and I think each of us met at least for 6 hours at a Starbucks, just going through everything, memorizing our essays. So it took a lot of time and effort. So I'm really proud of each and every one of us for stepping up and doing a great job.
And we're very thankful to Mr. Lundstedt, who continued to push us throughout the year and continues to push us as we go on to nationals.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Madam President and colleagues. I appreciate it. This was the best booth I visited at the Pumpkin Fest, and then here we are today. So really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. The Senate will be in recess for 3 minutes. The Senate will be out of recess. Without objection, today's fiscal note report is adopted. Okay, no objections. Okay. We will address the removal from the consent calendar. First, we have Senate Bill 439 from Election Law and Municipal Affairs, removed by Senator Perkins Polka. Next, we have Senate Bill 400 from the ED&A Committee, removed by Senator Gannon. We have Senate Bill 610 from the Health and Human Services Committee, removed by Senator Rochford. And that's what we have removed from the consent calendar. Next, we will go to the special orders. Without objection, the following bills are special ordered to the next session. In Commerce, House Bill 639. In Health and Human Services, Senate Bill 610. And in Ways and Means, Senate Bill 633 and Senate Bill 637. Senator Birdsell moves that the consent calendar with the relevant amendments as printed in the day's calendar be adopted, and that all such bills found ought to pass be ordered as follows. Fiscal note bills not waived under Senate Rule 4-5 to the Committee on Finance. Non-FN bills approved for referral to Finance by the day's fiscal note report to the Committee on Finance, and all other bills to third reading. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. We will now move on to the regular calendar. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 101 FN, an act authorizing parents to enroll their children in any public school in the state. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 6-1. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 101 FN ought to pass with amendment. This bill would authorize parents to enroll their children in public schools outside their resident district. In December of '25, the Department of Education issued a technical advisory that raised some uncertainty and inconsistencies among school districts regarding the recording of students at public events. As a solution, an amendment was crafted that creates a limited exception from the consent requirement under the Parental Bill of Rights for required assessments and school-sponsored events open to the general public. The Senate Finance Committee recommends passage of Senate Bill 101 FN with amendment and asks for your support. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lang. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. I rise in opposition to the committee amendment to Senate Bill 101. As amended, Senate Bill 101 will destroy local control with regard to open enrollment and will force districts to manage the extra incurred costs for any number of students opting to enroll in their school. While the issue of special education costs has been slightly accommodated, the large fiscal burdens still remain for receiving districts, which now may be any school. There are zero guardrails to ensure schools have the staffing or capacity to accommodate additional students under this bill. Our classrooms are understaffed. Some are over capacity at certain grade levels. This committee amendment and the underlying bill only serve to make a bad problem worse. Cities and towns know their capabilities best, which is why the option to be open enrollment or not must be up to our local school boards in accordance with locally determined standards and abilities. I believe this bill, as amended, presents a backdoor process for closure and consolidation of our schools. In lieu of fixing struggling schools, students' families will jump ship. As students jump ship, the school will receive less adequacy without any adjustment to their fixed costs. Some schools will only continue to struggle further, incentivizing more families to jump ship. I fear this policy will result in letting some schools circle the drain until they cannot operate anymore, as they have been set up to fail. No legislation exists in a vacuum, and when taken in totality with other legislation, this legislation is going to cause chaos. It's going to cost local taxpayers more money, and it will do nothing to improve the educational opportunities for students whose families cannot afford to transport their children to an out-of-district school. Additionally, this body has previously been quite concerned with continuity of education location, and this bill does nothing to address whether an out-of-district student's family must continue to apply for the out-of-district placement every year or not. Maybe they get in for first grade and the district students fill up the second grade and this child gets bumped to another school. Add this to efforts regarding school consolidations and closures, and the impact is striking. No effort to dismantle local control over public schools seems to be wasted. Though open enrollment purports to create educational choice, it is only a choice for those who have another school nearby, who can secure their own transportation, and who can finance the difference between the district's costs, if there is one. Like with the out-of-control voucher program, affluent families will likely benefit the most from this, and sending districts will struggle to manage consistent costs with less income. I respectfully urge the body to strike down the committee amendment for Senate Bill 101 and ensure that these decisions remain with the towns and cities as they ought to be. We should be working to improve all of our public schools, not pull the rug out from some of them. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Altshuler. Senator Avard to speak?
A question.
Oh, Senator Avard to ask a question of
Senator from District 2.
Senator Lang.
Senator Lang, thank you for taking my question. I just heard the apocalypse with regards to the schools and how it's going to harm them. And it seemed like this narrative is something that wants to be pushed. But I'd like you to explain to us how this isn't going to hurt the schools, but rather give parents more options with their children.
Thank you. Madam President, just as a point of order, I think that we're actually talking about the amendment and not the entire bill as a whole. And so I'm going to speak just to the amendment at this point to answer some of your questions. But I think if we want the larger discussion, we wait till whether the amendment drops, and then we can talk about the bill as amended. So speaking about the amendment does two things. The amendment deals with funding. And in the original bill, absent this amendment, we set funding at 100% of the average local cost of the sending district. So if your student is leaving, the responsibility for the school district would be 100% of its average to the receiving school. We recognize there was probably not some fairness in that, because there's some expenses to the local school district that they need to recover. And so therefore, what this amendment does is set the default at 100%, but then allows school boards with verification to drop that down to 80% if they can show a reason. So I'm going to give a simple example of what I thought of, and that is because the sending school has the obligation to manage that student. In other words, they're still on their state rolls for the purposes of reporting to DOE about students and residents. There's an administrative cost for that. So the school may decide that we want to keep 5% back of our average cost as an administrative fee, basically, for managing for sending the student. The amendment allows them to do that. Absent that, they can't do it. So this amendment makes it better, right? It makes it so schools could keep back some money for administrative costs that are around that student just for sending the student over. The second thing that this amendment does is, again, as many of you have heard within your district, there was a problem with broadcasting of sporting events or public events where a student might be present, where explicit permission from the parent wasn't granted. So many school districts stopped broadcasting. And even some school districts stopped broadcasting their school board meetings because you had an opportunity for a student to walk in and not have permission to have that student recorded. The amendment fixes that, and it says that anything that's open to the general public does not require explicit consent. So the bill does, and the third thing it does is there was from the Department of Education, there was some concerns about English as second language learners and assessments that need to be recorded federally. And so again, it created a waiver process. Any event that's open to the public or these assessments that have to be recorded are exempt from the explicit. So don't confuse the entire bill with what our next vote is. Our next vote is on the amendment that makes the bill much better, and I encourage all of you to vote for it. And Senator Avard, I know that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but I'm sure you can ask it when we get the next vote.
I'm going to. Thank you.
Senator Fenton, you have a question of?
District 24? You willing?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a very rural district, and we have some serious concerns about this amendment. And I was wondering, hearing you speak, it sounds like this is going to cost districts more money and affect our base adequacy?
Thank you for the question. So the way this fundamentally upends rural districts like yours is that it separates where a family lives from where they attend school, and at the same time will do nothing to change the reliance on the local taxes to fund the public schools. So where a family lives will still be linked to where they pay taxes, but those taxes will now flow freely to other school districts. And when the family moves, it doesn't do much to change another budget. When we look at some districts, like for instance, Rochester, right? The district has to fund students who might want to go to Dover. And if a child has an IEP, the amount that Rochester sends might be even higher to go over to Dover. Over time, as more students move, this isn't going to increase the cost for Rochester, but Rochester doesn't see any savings of that, no concurrent savings. And in some districts, that's actually going to mean higher taxes. And in other districts, the kids that are left behind, it means cuts to teacher pay or extracurricular programs. And in some, it will make it financially impossible to sustain a school. So additionally, if your rural school wants to build a building, your taxpayers are going to have to pay for that building and bond that building. But now you'll have to take students from other towns where those taxpayers did not contribute to building the building, but they will also reap the benefits.
Follow up if I may, Madam President? So what I'm hearing is this is going to raise property taxes. Is that true?
In some towns, it will significantly raise property taxes.
Thank you.
Senator Perkins Coie with a question for?
My colleague from District 24, please. Thank you for taking my question. In most cases, if I read this legislation correctly, it allows for sending districts to send students, pay less than the full cost, and justify that if, there's a demonstrated need for lower tuition. So in most cases today, have most SB2 school districts already posted their budget warrants for the year?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. Most SB2 districts have already submitted their warrants. And for non-SB2 towns, we will be going to town meetings starting up in March, and school districts are having their deliberative sessions starting next month. So the date that this bill takes effect is genuinely going to cause chaos because we cannot account. We are budgeted for how many students are in the district and are anticipated in the district. And if we open up open enrollment, then that shifts people all over the place, and you cannot budget for that because it's an unknown. So it is going to throw our school committees, school boards, taxes into chaos.
Thank you.
Going forward, I'd like to remind everyone, we are discussing the amendment, not the bill as amended. So please try to keep your comments and questions toward the amendment. We will have plenty of opportunity to discuss the Senate bill. Okay. Senator Avard has a question of,
Senator from District 2. Again, on the amendment, we're told teachers' salaries are going to be affected, property taxes are going to be affected. I'm hearing a false narrative, and I'd like an explanation as to why it is a false narrative.
So thank you for your question. So again, in terms of the funding portion of the first part of the amendment, school districts, to the senator from District 24's comment, school districts have already set their budget. That's true. Having served on a budget committee, I know that we make estimates all the time. We have no idea when we set our budget in March what September is going to look like. We have a guess, and that's all it is a guess. But what makes it a false narrative is that even with that guess, assuming their number wasn't way below and it was near target, that doesn't change the funding formula. The average cost per student is exactly the same, whether the student leaves or the student stays. So it doesn't change the spending line one iota. The maximum number is still the maximum number. The benefit is, again, by doing the receiving side of the conversation, is you now create a revenue stream within your budget that, true, hasn't been adjusted for and adopted within a budget process, but that's just extra revenue coming into that district that's going to be used to offset local property taxes in the following year. So again, it's a false narrative to say anybody who passed the budget right now is going to have a financial problem. That's not true. If they allocate it for 100 students and they end up with 100 students, then they have the money per student that they allocated. If they allocate it for 100 students, 10 come into the district, that's just revenue that's offset. It's going to increase the revenue. And as was said in committee, it's not an equal cost. Just because you bring one kid into a classroom doesn't mean if the tuition was $20,000, it means you have a $20,000 expense. You actually have less of expense to add one student than you do adding 70 students where you might have to hire a teacher. So again, this is going to create a revenue stream for the incoming districts that will lower property taxes. And I have to be honest with you, I truly dislike the idea that everyone thinks their school's so bad, everyone's going to flee it, right? And that's the argument that's being made. Schools are so bad, everybody's going to run away, and I don't believe that. I think our public schools are great, but I also think that there are reasons why parents may want to choose another school, and this gives them that opportunity.
So a quick follow-up, if I may. Thank you, and thank you for your explanation. So when I hear the teachers' salaries are going to be affected and property taxes are going to be affected, that has nothing to do with this amendment, and it is false. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you.
okay, nope. Okay, the bill is again on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion, any further discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? Roll call. Roll call has been requested. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Senator Fenton.
Okay.
The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
No.
Senator Fenton. No. Senator McGue. Yes. Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas.
No.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
Senator Carson.
Yes.
Hope that's right. 1410.
The ayes have it by a vote of 14 to 10. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 101 FN. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Okay, wait a second, okay. Okay, Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Madam President. Even though we've already met once, I'm still getting back into the swing of things. So I appreciate your letting me take the time to speak. I'm rising in opposition to the underlying bill, because that's where we're at, correct?
Yes, now we're talking about.
We're talking about the whole bill. Okay. So thank you again. So, in Senate Education, we dealt with more than one bill about open enrollment. So this was not a new discussion, but what we tried to do in Senate Education, because we had more than one bill, was to slow this down and consider all of the impacts, both the things that might work well and the things that might not work well. By moving this the way that we are, we're moving ahead without really having considered all of the impacts. Folks think that they know, but that's why we take the time to slow it down and truly understand. That's what I believe. I appreciate what my colleague from District 2 just said about, that local schools are maybe, are cast in some negative light, in this. And what we're trying to do, or what I want to do, I don't think my local schools are bad, and I've never said that, but what I worry is that if we continue to undermine brick by brick the structure of local schools, the school systems, and the SAUs, then the presence of local neighborhood schools in our communities, they could become unstable, and I want to deal with that. So I'm just going to speak with a few broad, I want to cover a couple of areas, and I'll close out my comments. One, I'm concerned, and I always have been, about losing local control. Former local official, understand that we know our community schools the best. We know our local governments the best. That should be no surprise for those of you that have known me. But what happens here is that school boards won't be able to determine any longer, what their policies will be around, like, who they will accept and not accept, except for, with the exception of a criteria that are in here that have to do with capacity, discipline, and absenteeism. So you'd have to be able to justify these denials, which takes that control away from them. It limits these boards' discretions. 2, new administrative and reporting burdens that are shifted onto the boards, but are also going to need to be managed by those that do the administrative work for the schools. Developing and auditing open enrollment policies, defining and publishing capacity by school and grade level, tracking progress and deciding on transfer applications, and reporting enrollment and transfer data annually to the Department of Education. So that's not just a small task. These are multiple tasks that are now going to have to be managed. Financial uncertainty and budget planning challenges. So there's a discussion here about creating revenue streams and where people will go and where they will stay. I'm really worried about those that are leaving districts and what money will follow them. There are still, I would say districts, I'm going to talk about the local schools because schools are within districts, districts are within SAUs. So let's just think about that these schools will then have these they have now fixed costs for electricity, for teachers, for transportation. All of those things will still remain, but children could be transferred, could leave and go to another district. And that funding goes and becomes a revenue stream for that district, so what about not where they came from? It's not a revenue stream anymore. How do we stabilize where they came from? So I think that the sending perspective has a loss that's associated with this. There's, pressure on capacity and staffing decisions, and this will, although it's not directly, it's a different conversation, there was an Education Freedom Accounts Oversight Committee meeting in December where the school district, a member of the school board from, I believe it was Merrimack, came in, and she was actually able to go through and say, here is money that we are actually losing with these changes where children are leaving our districts now, or our schools. I know this isn't about EFAs, but she specifically talked about, I believe it was pre-K, having to close down one of their classrooms and losing a gifted and talented program. So there are going to be these costs and decisions that schools are going to have to make should they lose funding, because budgeting uncertainty will eventually follow. So I will wrap here by saying that local school boards, under SB 101 will shift this schools from community-governed institutions toward a more state-directed, centralized, Concord-run school systems. Boards need to retain the operational responsibilities, not lose the flexibility that they've had, the predictability that they have in their decision-making. They have to be accountable to their taxpayers and their families. And I do believe that if revenue is leaving schools, with one child, 2 children, 3 children, and they start to move out, that we will see costs that are going to have to be shifted back onto our property tax base. That's what I believe. That's what I've come to know as being a local official, and I'll close my comments there. Thank you again, Madam President, for giving me the time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Altshuler wishes to speak. Could you let Darryl?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak against the bill as amended. This bill explicitly prohibits districts from making admission decisions based on grade or age levels, pupil needs, areas of academic focus, aptitude, academic or athletic achievement. It's not clear in the bill how the mandate to ignore grade or age levels works in the context of grade level capacity. There's no congruity there. Districts would also be allowed, after a public hearing, to work with other districts to create a consolidated applicant pool and assign students through admissions lottery, I guess. It's not clear what happens, what the appeal process is when a parent is unhappy with their assignment through this process. Also unclear is if a parent successfully moves their child to another school for 3rd grade, and then the following school year, that school has a capacity, and in the 4th grade, does that child have to go back to their previous district? So the continuity of education is interrupted right there and not accounted for in the bill. Transportation. It clarifies that families are not entitled to transportation outside their home district, but parents could drive their children to a bus stop on an existing route. Any bus stop on any existing route? Do they go to the same bus stop? What if they go to a different bus stop? Who's responsible for keeping eyes on that child? Bus stops and bus routes are assigned. So who's going to be taking care of that? And let's break it down a little more. Every year, the New Hampshire Department of Education calculates a cost per pupil for each school district, basically taking the total amount the district spent and dividing it by the number of students in the district. It's a very crude metric, but there are some exceptions to what is counted. The average cost per pupil in the state was $22,699 last year, and it ranged from $14,653 in Auburn and $50,323 in Jackson. And the vast majority, up to 80% of that cost, is covered by local taxpayers. So under SB 101, as amended, a student's home district would have to pay its total cost per pupil. So $14,653 in Auburn's case, to the school that the student enrolled in. If the home district's payment was less than the cost per pupil at the school the student enrolled in, the receiving district, the parents pay the difference. So if an Auburn student wanted to enroll here in Concord, where the cost per pupil is $24,351, the student's parents from Auburn are on the hook for $9,698. It's not clear what happens if the opposite is true. For instance, if a Concord student went to Auburn, it appears that Auburn would get the full $24,351 from Concord. The bill does say that districts can pay less than their full cost per pupil, but honestly, what district is going to do that? It's not clear how need would be demonstrated or who makes the final determination. This bill creates chaos. Its implementation date is July 1 of 2026. I have already heard from superintendents in my district, and should this pass, you'll hear from yours too, that this is not something that can be implemented on the fly. It's going to hurt students. It's going to raise our property taxes. With respect, I ask that this body vote this bill down. Thank you.
Thank you. This time, Senator Rosenwald, you recognized to ask a question.
Yes, my colleague from District 24, if she'll take it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So basically, we have a certain number of students that we know about every year and a certain amount of education funding that we allocate to that. I was struck by the remarks of our colleague from District 2 when he talked about how the receiving districts would be getting revenue. And my question is, wouldn't the opposite or the corollary be true in the sending districts, that as the receiving districts are gaining revenue, the sending districts are losing state aid, therefore shifting the burden to the property taxpayers?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think that what you've described was an incomplete narrative of how this bill would play out. That some towns will be getting some revenue, and the town on the other end of that equation is losing because they still have lights to put on, they still have contracts for their teachers, they're still paying retirement costs in full from the municipality that we're not contributing to anymore. And they're still raising enough money for adequacy that the state is not paying for. So yes, that schools will suffer.
Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. At this time, Senator Carson, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I've listened very carefully to the arguments that are being presented here today concerning education. And I think it's really, honestly, kind of ironic that we're not talking about the student, the one who's receiving the education. Because that's where I think our duty and our obligation lies, to ensure that every student in this state gets the best education that we can provide for them. But all I'm hearing this morning, Mr. President, is about preserving the system. We must preserve the system. So let's talk a little bit about the system. This system was put in place in the 19th century. The world that we lived in was very, very different. Everything was local. You had your schools were local, businesses were local, people did move around, but they didn't move around as much as we move around today. So I'm listening to this, and it's, why is this so difficult? We heard these arguments before when we started venturing into charter schools. Guess what? The world didn't end. They remind me of the fable about Chicken Little. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. Guess what? When we adopted charter schools, the sky didn't fall down. It enhanced a student's education. That's where our focus should be. What can we do to deliver the best education? And it's not always about money. We've got to step away from equating money, providing X amount of dollars for the best education. Our students today have to compete not in a local economy, but in a global economy. We have to do our very best to help them get to that place. And if their local school is not providing them the education that they need, does that mean because of archaic laws that were passed in the 19th century they have to stay there? I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's appropriate. We need to listen to parents. Parents know their children, and they want their children to get the very best education they can. This discussion should be about the students' education, not about the schools. This bill respects local control because it allows the school district to set the number of students that they can accept. If they decide they can accept 50 students, they've made that decision. No one's forcing them to take 51 or 52. They make that decision. And when we talk about school budgeting, let's not forget that when schools budget, they don't get all their adequacy at one time. They get it 4 times a year. So they're able to adjust the amount of money they're getting, and they can adjust budgeting. That's important to realize. I was standing up there and I was thinking about a line from a song, and usually Senator Waters comes up with something from a book or something from a song. We're telling people, if you live in a town, that's the school you have to go to. You have no real choices unless you want to get an EFA, send your child to a charter school. You have parents that strongly believe in public schools, and they want their children to go to public schools. I happen to come from a district that has an excellent series of public schools, and I can see people coming to my district in order for their kids to get a great education. But I just keep thinking about this song from the Eagles, Hotel California. You can check out any time you want, but you can never leave. We have gone far beyond that. Our economy is global. Why can't our schools? Why can't our schools change? Why are we stuck protecting this model? We've got to get away from protecting the system and start focusing on what is the best education that we can provide for our students. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Waters, you're recognized to ask a question.
Yes. Good morning.
Farther into the classrooms and other students they could have. And they'd be willing to take a few students. However, what happens if a school, the capacity is published, they take the students in, and then several families move into town, and they bring their kids to the school? Would they, as residents of the district, what would happen about them then wanting to have their kids go to school at the local school?
Thank you for the question. As my colleague from District 2 had mentioned, it's difficult to come up with an exact number because you never know. You do have people moving around quite a bit, and I imagine this would be in a city like Manchester where you have a lot of movement within the city, as well as Nashua, our larger cities. And the school boards, we elect people to run our schools, and they have a pretty good idea about population, and they work with the school superintendent. So they can estimate and they can accommodate. If I may, I just pose a question back to you. If they said we can only have this number of students and somebody moves in and they go over that number, they must accommodate them. They can't tell them, sorry, we can't take you, and send them someplace else. They must take them. And I believe by giving the school board and the district the ability to set the number of students, they can estimate, which is what they already do now. So I see nothing different happening.
And just very briefly before I ask the next question, Mr. President, just because you asked the question to me, I think that the issue then becomes, yes, they'd have to take the students in, but the taxpayers from those other schools would not be putting up for what might be extensive extra costs. And I, kind of related to that too, I would just answer your question and say that part of the issue too is that, let's say a modular classroom has to bring in to take care of those extra students or so on. The schools, the taxpayers from the other districts are not contributing to that. I did have another particular question about this, if I may. Is there a question? Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So, as you know, I work extensively on career technical education.
Yes.
And this raises a particular issue that because, as you know, we have very strict capacity limits because of welding or healthcare. I mean, what equipment, how many teachers, and so on and so forth. So the question I would have is if you have the student come in and there is capacity at that time for a program at the CTE. I mean, because we have these sending receiving school district agreements, which are in statute, are very extensive about how all these things get handled. But somebody comes in from another school, another district, as a sophomore, and they got 2 more years in the program, and then the freshmen who want to get into that slot from the school that's actually paying the extra amount to have a CTE center is not getting any of that money from the other taxpayers, right? So what will happen? What are we doing to the CTEs?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, Senator. You and I think we can agree, you and I have always supported technical education. And we've worked together on a number of bills. And I've always appreciated your foresight in how you do things. But let me, I guess, maybe pose a question back to you. What do you do if you have a student move in mid-semester who actually lives there? You find a way to accommodate. And I think that is what's going to happen. You're going to find, the schools are going to have to find a way to accommodate. And quite frankly, I think this is a great opportunity for us as a Senate to, again, focus on education and say we should be encouraging more public schools to offer technical education to their students. I think it's something we need to do, and I hope we can do that. And I will be more than happy to work with you on the next budget.
And if I may say
Ask another question?
Yeah.
One more follow-up.
I'm asking the earlier question that she asked about songs. And
Okay, here we go.
Our colleague from District 3 used to say, he always would quote the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. But if you don't mind my saying, the Stones song that I think that the school district is going to be hearing, because this is under my thumb. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Question. Senator Altshuler, you're recognized to ask a question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I have a question for my colleague from District 5, if she will take it.
Sure. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So within the bill as it's written, this open enrollment policy, it says that each district must determine and publish the capacity of each school and grade level, and that vacancies are to be posted and updated on a monthly basis. Will that cause our schools to have to do more paperwork and cost money to do that? That's money, that's time?
Thank you for the question. So as I had stated during my first set of remarks on this, there are a number of impacts that, well, they need to be studied, but one of the impacts that I talked about that we know is that within the bill, there are a number of reporting requirements, and one of the ones you just mentioned presents with the others, there's at least 4 added administrative burdens, and that's really, it starts with the school boards and then who's doing their work. So it does, if they are focusing on those things, they are not focusing on things in the classroom.
Thank you. May I follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. After the discussion that we've had and seeing the bill as amended, are you clear, because I'm not, but are you clear and can you explain whether capacity refers to physical capacity, how much space is in a classroom, Is it staff capacity? How many teachers are available per grade level and specials? Is it how many nurses are available? Is that part of the capacity for the number of students? Is it transportation capacity, since we're going to allow students from outside the district to get on in-district buses? How many seats are available on that bus? Or is it something else entirely? What is capacity?
Thank you for your question. So going back again to my initial comments, this has not been properly, in my opinion, has not been properly vetted, fully studied. So when I think about capacity as it's presented in the language here, it says capacity, and I'm thinking like per chair, per student. And that's if do you have that capacity? You know, are there any other, say, disciplinary issues or things that need to be considered that would allow that school to justify a denial? But clearly, if you are going to bring more people in, bring more children in, or you are going to shrink the number, there are going to be capacity issues. That has not been fully vetted. So the size of the building, the number of the desks, how many buses, how many teachers, these are all costs that directly impact the day-to-day education of these children that it's not clear when you say capacity. Thank you.
Final follow-up, Mr. President
You're
Pro Tem.
recognized for
Last question. So we heard talk today about how it was disturbing to talk about money, and talk about costs, but unlike the legislature, our teachers don't work for free, right? And running a school costs money, and educating children costs money, even though our legislature, you wouldn't know that because we don't pay adequacy. But a school doesn't run for free. Is that right? Like, it's taxpayer dollars.
Yes, Senator Altshuler, that is correct.
Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on SB 101. At this time, Senator Gray, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to congratulate our colleague from District 14 to bringing this back to talking about the student. I've spent 14 years here in the legislature between the House and the Senate, and when people oppose a bill, oh, it's bad. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. It's going to do this other thing. And you know what? Of all those bills that people have talked against, how many of those things have really happened? Mr. President, that chandelier may fall. Yeah, we could have an earthquake. We could have something else. But bringing up all of these things that talk about, well, this funding, this funding, this funding. Rochester has been brought up several times. Rochester offers multiple paths to get a high school education. Normal academic path, the Tech Center, VLAX, and we also have the Bud Carlton School for those students who don't do well in a regular academic setting and can graduate with a reduced course load. Maybe a student in Farmington wants to come to Rochester because they're having difficulty. Maybe a student in Barrington, maybe a student somewhere else. I have a grandson who left the public schools to go to another school because he felt he was being harassed. Well, it's not online, it's not here, it's not there. School says, we've done everything we can as far as I was told. But that's how he felt. He is doing much, much better now that he is not in the public schools. So we need to talk about the student. We need to talk about the schools not educating the students so that they are meeting the criteria for math, the criteria for English reading and everything. Those things are what I'm interested in. We have studied this bill to make sure that the costs are reasonable and that the sending school and receiving school are being treated fairly. Will we make a mistake? Maybe. But just as in the other bills that we've got today, we go back and correct our mistakes. The path forward is passing a bill, finding out those unintended consequences, HB 2, right? We're going to make some corrections to that today, hopefully, or in the next week or two. We debated that for a long time. But the sky isn't falling here in New Hampshire, okay? We need to take the remarks of the people who say, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, something else is going to happen, with a grain of salt. Because look back in your own. A lot of those things that people talked about just didn't happen. And a lot of the things that were talked about today on this bill just won't happen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gray. Senator Waters, you're recognized to ask a question.
Senator from District 5. Thanks for taking my question. And notwithstanding the heartfelt words of our colleague from District 6, I just want to have one more speculation, which I think, based on what we've seen happening in our colleges, is quite likely to happen. Do you think that what this will do is set up a competition to try to get varsity athletes to transfer from one school to another to improve a team?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Carson, you're recognized to ask a question.
Yes, from my colleague from District 4.
I haven't spoken, but I'd be glad
Oh.
to, if you'd like.
You've made plenty of comments.
Okay, I'd be glad to. I did talk, I will say, I know that.
Thank you. I just want to reference the question that you would ask the senator from District 5. Would you believe that that's already happening now? You have students, parents will actually move into a district because of a music program, or they'll move in because of an athletic program that their children want to participate in. Now, parents won't have to pick up and move. You know we have housing issues here in New Hampshire, Senator. And so why are we forcing people to actually physically move out of the district in order to get an appropriate education for their child?
Thanks for your question, Madam President. And, you know, I think that what the case would be now, the families won't have to move. But I think particularly with the athletics, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really stirring ourselves up about maybe 1, 2, 3 transgender students who might bump somebody else from a sports team. And now we're saying, well, we're going to bump a lot of local kids from the sports team because somebody from, you know, half the state across, their parents want them to compete on this hockey team. So if we're going to worry about students having the opportunity to compete in sports, let's worry about all of our students. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. President, may I follow up?
Yes.
Oh, another question?
Another
Okay.
question. Thank you.
I'm ready.
Thank you. Would you believe that this bill would empower local school boards to address those issues? So they don't, if they have an excellent sports program, that they're going to try to protect their school and their district from that, from getting an excess number of athletes that are going to hurt the local athletes. And I will just say, I believe that that is something that our local school boards will address.
Well, thanks for the question. And I share your faith in our local school boards. I mean, they're such hardworking people. They really try to accommodate things. But I think what is difficult about this bill, in terms of that question, is that we're giving them no time. And we have, in this bill, really moved the goalposts as to whether or not they can accept students and what number, because of the capacity lists and so on. So I think we're just throwing an avalanche at them when they might have just one little snow shovel. And they need some time.
Okay. Thank you.
Question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. This time, Senator Perkins Cogut, you are recognized.
Yes,
Mr. President. It's rare that we get to have such a robust debate on the Senate floor, and I appreciate sort of having this exchange of ideas. And I want to respond to what my colleague from District 14 and my colleague from District 6 have raised, because this is about the students. This is about them being able to learn and have the best education possible. But, the student doesn't exist in a vacuum. They're not an autonomous being that transports around the state. The student is going to learn best when their teacher can nurture them. The student is going to learn best when they have a full belly from a nutritious and healthy school lunch. They're going to learn best when their administrators or teachers have time to plan a really thoughtful curriculum or engage them in some complex activities. The work of our educators and administrators in creating our public school system is meaningful. It has value. And the work that our school boards do to plan the education of our students matters. It does contribute to making their education better. And the public education system is the great equalizer of our society. It's bringing people from all backgrounds, as my colleague from District 6 pointed out, to a different place of possibility. And that is amazing. And I think that when we ignore all of that work and all of that planning and the fact that these things do, whether we like it or not, cost money, then we're really ignoring what's in the students' best interest. We need to put them first, but they need to be part of a system that has the time and the energy and the ability to plan for them. And so when we create chaos, we are harming the student because we are creating chaos in the system around them. And when school boards are already facing, rising health insurance rates, changes in funding from the federal government, transportation fundings at the state level, different project costs going on, an attack on their administration costs, defunding in other ways, including school vouchers, which I know we're not debating today, but it's all relevant because we have to let these folks do their job, and their job is to serve the student, and they can't do that if they're distracted by all of this other stuff. So I want to recenter what we're trying to accomplish here, and I think it's important to exchange ideas. I don't think we should be calling each other's ideas false narratives on the Senate floor. We have different opinions, and we are all debating them, but at the end of the day, I think we have to be putting our students first if we want our education system to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan, you're recognized to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for my colleague from District 14. My cheat sheet's gone. We just heard from our colleague that public education is the great equalizer. Is it not true that currently students are segregated by zip code and that they're in a have and have not situation, and a bill like this could actually be the equalizer in public education?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is on ought to pass as amended on SB 101. At this time, Senator Fenton, you're recognized to speak.
Mr. President, I just need 20 minutes of your time, guys. I'm kidding. It's been a very long conversation. I really appreciate the conversation, but I do rise in opposition to this bill, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I am a public school kid, graduated New Hampshire Public Schools, Keene High School, go Blackbirds. So much so, my son is now in those same public schools, so I wear a lot of different hats in this conversation. He's in the same elementary school that I went to, so life comes at you really fast, so be prepared for that. But, talking with teachers, talking with parents, they haven't been asking for this, especially in this rural district. And what my colleague alluded to is that we want strong schools. We want teachers to get the right pay. We want to be able to live in housing that we can afford. And this bill doesn't address any of that. And it's riddled with holes. We're talking about donor towns have to pick up the tab of this bill. Subjective admission criteria. There's no statewide definitions. There's a tuition gap where, parents have to pay a different amount for each. If we are serious about open enrollment, let's get a proper hearing out of this. Let's slow it down. Let's look at this. But we've heard so many concerns today that this bill is not yet ready. And I think from the conversations alone, we can all say that there's a lot of disagreement on this. Let's take a step back and figure out another path forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is on ought to pass as amended on SB 101. At this time, Senator Lang, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, lots of discussion, lots of good discussion. Some interesting things. So, this is my bill. I brought this bill forward at the request of a public school teacher whose student loves music, and she didn't feel her public school had a robust enough music department. Had music, just her kid wanted to go to school for music, and that's what they wanted. So she tried to get a permission to move to another public school that had tuition, was denied. Public school to public school, public dollars to public dollars, denied for the thing that her child wants made school exciting for. Denied. Stay in the district, get what you get. So the idea that, number one, we've had discussion about how little teachers make on a regular basis here, to say that this is only good for rich people. That public school teacher is definitely probably not a rich person, right? This is an average parent who just wanted what was best for their child and was denied. So the option is they go to EFAs. That's the option, right? It's the only option we're giving them, parents in our district that want to just move. I may want to move from Winnisquam to Laconia or Laconia to Winnisquam, for whatever reason a parent chooses. We want to give them that option, right? So there's been a discussion about this is a new idea. We need time to study it. 46 states have open enrollment laws. 23 states have universal open laws. These laws go back to 1988. Minnesota, not exactly a bastion of conservatism, supported open enrollment. California, 1983, open enrollment. This is not a new idea. This is not reinventing the wheel. This is a program that's been vetted by state after state after state, and public schools are still standing in all of those states. There was a discussion around monthly reporting. This is an administrative burden. Well, to be honest with you, the reason it has monthly reporting is to speak to the senator from District 4's comment, is that the idea being somebody may move in, and so you have to adjust your numbers. But at the same point, if a parent's considering it, they need to go somewhere and look, can I even go to Winnisquam School District? Do they have availability for me? It allows the school district to just routinely change the number to let other parents in the state know if they're considering that school, then is there availability? And they can make their decision. If not, then what's my second choice? What's my third choice? They can make those calls, right? The last thing, the other idea, the concept that school boards are incapable of figuring this out is completely, number one, as a former school board member for 2 terms, I find that offensive, right? The idea being that if, as an engineer, I never designed a system to 100%. Why? Because I need to be able to allow for growth. The idea being here, school boards are going to do the same thing. They're going to look and say, we could take 100 students, we're only going to take 75 because I need to leave headroom for anybody who might move in the district. Not an uncommon concept. Everybody should be able to figure that out. And lastly, this idea about this is creating chaos. Rhetorical question. Does anybody know how many schools in the state of New Hampshire are sending schools? 100% based on the court order. 100% based on Pittsfield versus Prospect Mountain, the Supreme Court decision. 100% of schools are sending schools. The only question is who gets those kids, and you have to adopt open enrollment to bring them in. So Prospect Mountain, in this case, did that. And there was a Supreme Court case on it, and the Supreme Court ruled. The Supreme Court ruled 100% of school districts are currently open enrollment schools, and kids can leave now. All right, this bill's idea is to put order to that mess and to allow and create order out of that. So schools know, they can decide, okay, we're going to take kids, how many students are we going to take? This bill brings order to chaos that's been created. And so, again, the idea that school boards can't figure this out, our schools are so bad, people are going to be fleeing them and they're going to go bankrupt, are all ridiculous arguments. Our schools are good. This is about parental choice and allowing parents to go from public school to public school, staying within the public school system. So again, It's not a new idea. It's not going to bankrupt schools. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this bill.
Question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended. At this time, Senator Prentice, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you. I rise because I feel compelled to just correct a perception that is out there or may be out there. And especially based on my comments, in talking about the administrative burdens that will be placed on school boards, which ultimately will be placed on the staff and the funding be placed on the staffs that support those school boards, and many of them being like very small communities. That's not saying that anybody doesn't know how to do their job. In fact, I've stood here for 5 years and talked about how the locals, the senator from District 2 served on a school board. He knows his community or communities that school board covers the best, okay? I've served on a city council. I believe that I, from that work, knew how to make decisions for my community the best that I could with the information that I have. So there's no aspersion here that any school board is doing a bad job. It's just a matter of balancing out all of the things that we're asking people to do when we haven't really fully moved through the discussion. I believe that the train is on a fast track right now, and I'm glad that 46 other states have done it. In fact, I've often stood or sat before committees or stood on this floor and talked about what other states do because I think that we can learn lessons from how other states do their business. But the thing that is different about this state is how we fund or don't fund education. So when we're having this conversation, that has to come into it. And I lastly want to close by, I do appreciate the robust debate here today. And I want you all to know that when I make a comment or I have a point to make, that I am not being disrespectful or speaking against you. It is my perspective, my representation of my district, and what I bring to this. So I value the relationships and the work that we all do together in the New Hampshire Senate, and I look forward to continuing that on behalf of the children in our school systems. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is ought to pass. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on SB 101. Senator Altshuler, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I think I was incorrect before and said Mr. Chair. My apologies. Okay, well, take the apology anyway. I did. So I just wanted to clarify because my colleagues on that side of the room, I won't say aisle because there's been a lot of discussion, have brought up funding mechanisms and being concerned, asserting that a concern that this will create a chaotic environment for our school boards and our superintendents to try to accommodate this policy on the fly is untrue. And I want to just level set us to remind everyone that states like California and Minnesota have sales and income taxes with which they fund their schools. We underfund our schools and are actually court-ordered to raise that adequacy funding, and the difference between what it actually costs and how much the state contributes is made up on the backs of property tax payers at different rates in different towns. So it is not a level playing field. And I just wanted to remind that if we are going to compare ourselves or the possibility of doing something like another state, we have to take the totality of how they execute that policy into their education programming. So if they are using a tax base of sales and income taxes to pay for something, we can't compare it to us trying to do the same thing with just local property taxes. So it's an apples to oranges comparison. I don't think it works, but thank you.
Senator Birdsall moves the question.
Just read that there first.
The question is adoption of ought to pass as amended on SB 101. Are you ready? Are you ready for the question?
Roll call has been requested, but we need a second.
Without a second, all in favor?
No, we're going to do a roll call.
It was,
need a second.
it wasn't seconded, so I moved on. All right. The question is on adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 101. Roll call has been requested.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
No.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McHugh.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Carson.
Yes.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Coker.
No.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
And Senator Abbas.
No.
It's 14-10.
The-
Did I get it wrong?
It's 1410. By a vote of 14 to 10, the motion of ought to pass as amended on SB 101, it passes. The bill is now ordered to third reading.
Good job.
Recess. Senate Bill 101 has been ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred House Bill 751 FN, an act establishing a committee to study licensure of outpatient substance use disorder treatment facilities. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 5-0. Senator Pearl for the committee.
Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 751 FN ought to pass as amended. House Bill 751 will establish a committee to study the licensure of outpatient substance use disorder treatment facilities. The committee felt it was important to continue to shine a light on how we license these outpatient treatment facilities. This is relevant for both patient safety and access to care. The committee offered one amendment, which was to change the number of senators on the study committee from 2 to 1, as has been our custom. The Executive Departments and Administrative Committee asked for your support and asked for you to support the motion of ought to pass as amended. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Pearl. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there further discussion or amendment? And I will recognize Senator Lang for the introduction of a floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam President, I offer floor amendment 260297S, and I'd like to speak to my floor amendment.
You may speak.
Thank you very much. So, Madam Chair, this is SB 101, what we just passed on a 14-10 vote, being added to this. As I spoke, the goal of this, by doing this, is to, the House has already passed an open enrollment bill and sent it to the Senate. They're already on board. They already have their policy established. But we know we have this chaos that's been created by the Supreme Court decision. The goal is to expedite this bill and put it in front of the House as soon as possible by attaching to this bill, which is an HB. It will go back to the House. They can review it and decide if they agree with us. But it'll allow school districts the most amount of time possible to be able to implement Senate Bill 101. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Perkins Coca.
President, we won't belabor the floor with the debate we just had on this bill under the previous debate, but I do want to point out that basically now what we're doing is taking the bill we just debated as SB 101 that we raised several concerns about, that we feel is not ready to go forward, that our school districts have already passed and proposed their town warrants. This bill now, if it's amended with this floor amendment, will go to the House for a simple concurrence. It will not face a hearing, and will therefore, presumably, if it passes, become law with ever having had that hearing in the House. So that's our comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Senator Perkins Coca.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to divide the question on the floor amendment, number 2026-297. I would like to divide sections 14, 15, and the effective date, and then divide the remaining sections for the second vote.
Thank you. I'm ruling that the question is divisible, and so I'm going to request a 3-minute recess. Senate will come out of recess. I'd like to remind everyone that Senator Perkins Coca has made a request to divide the question, a move, and I have ruled that it is divisible. So, the first vote is on sections 14 and 15 and the effective date. Are you ready for the question? We're talking about the amendment, Senator Lang's amendment, which is 0297S. Okay? Are you ready for the question? A roll call has been requested by Senator Altshuler, seconded by Senator Fenton. Oh, I thought I saw Senator, I apologize, I thought I saw your hand go up.
It was, because I was like, where's my paper?
Okay. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Prentice.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Richard.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
Yes.
Senator McGee.
Yes.
Senator Avon.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Reardon.
Yes.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coca.
Yes.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
Yes.
Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 24-0. The second vote is on the remaining sections and the effective date. Are you ready for the question?
Roll call.
Roll call has been requested by Senator Altshuler, seconded by Senator Fenton. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Richardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGee.
Yes.
Senator Avar.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Coca.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. Ayes have it by a vote of 16-8. Pardon? Oh, and the floor amendment is adopted. Okay, so we have the next one.
If they ask.
Okay.
Oh, I need one.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Now we're moving on to the motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there any discussion? Senator Perkins Coca.
Yes, Madam President, I do move to divide this question as well on the same basis. So if I read the floor amendment correctly, then the sections stay the same, and so we'd like to divide sections 14 and 15 and the effective date from the remaining sections.
Thank you. I will again rule that it is divisible. So what we're doing here is we are talking about the bill, House Bill 751 ought to pass with amendment. A request has been made to divide the bill. It is divisible. So again, the first vote will be on sections 14, 15, and the effective date. Are you ready for the question?
Roll call, please.
Roll call has been requested by Senator Altshuler, seconded by Senator Fenton. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Prentice.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Richardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
Yes.
Senator McGee.
Yes.
Senator Avar.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Reardon.
Yes.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Long?
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coker?
Yes.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altshuler?
Yes.
And Senator Carson?
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 24-0. Sections 14 and 15 of House Bill 751 have passed. We are now going to take a second vote on the remaining sections and the effective date. Roll call, Madam President. Okay, roll call has been requested by Senator Fenton, seconded by Senator Altshuler.
Okay.
The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort?
Yes.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McConkey?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
No.
Senator Prentice?
No.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Innes?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Brashardi?
Yes.
Senator Fenton?
No.
Senator McHugh?
Yes.
Senator Avon?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
No.
Senator Reardon? No. Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pearl?
Yes.
Senator Sullivan?
Yes.
Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Long?
No.
Senator Perkins Coker?
No.
Senator Abbas?
Yes.
Senator Gannon?
Yes.
Senator Altshuler?
No.
Senator Carson?
Yes. Thank you. The ayes have it by a vote of 16-8, and House Bill 751, as amended, is ordered to third reading. Okay. Okay. Yep. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
So we're now in Commerce, right? Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Commerce, to which was referred Senate Bill 418, an act prohibiting municipalities from requiring licenses for the production and sale of homestead food products. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-2. Senator McHugh for the committee.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you, Madam President. I move a much more delicious Senate Bill 418 ought to pass. I'd like to speak to that, if I may. So this bill would prohibit municipalities from requiring licenses for production and sale of homestead food products. Over the years, as a young paramedic working even in the streets of Manchester, we would go around to all the great spots that made homemade kielbasa around Eastern time. And I shudder to think what would have happened if Manchester got news of those vendors and those homestead producers and shut them down. I'm not sure what we would have had for our Easter dinner back at the paramedic quarters. So this legislature has granted greater flexibility over the years for homestead food producers. And these changes aimed to protect and support local businesses and entrepreneurs while ensuring food safety is not negatively impacted. In my district, in many places, there's fantastic locations to find jams and jellies and baked goods every weekend, and we enjoy doing that. But despite these changes, some self-inspecting cities and towns have become increasingly more restrictive. So, for example, we all heard about Manchester and the cease and desist letter that was sent to a gentleman producing pickles in his own home, yet he never even sold them. While food safety concerns can be legitimate, if a product is exempt under state law, rules should be the same across municipalities. Consistency, reduced bureaucracy, and the freedom to choose healthy products from your friends and neighbors, and most importantly, less government overreach can only improve the marketplace, not harm it. So given the historic tradition of homesteading and our commitment to entrepreneurship in the state, the majority of the Commerce Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass on Senate Bill 18. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Senator Long?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the ought to pass motion on Senate Bill 418. Senate Bill 418, which prohibits towns and cities from adopting unique public health ordinances for home-prepared foods, is not about small business, but about stripping local control even more from our municipalities. I do not find the impetus of this bill appropriate to justify a change in the law for the entire state that further extends state outreach into our towns and cities. The bill came about in response to one local problem that the municipality could rectify it itself on its own terms, without necessitating the work of the entire legislator. I do not find that a good reason to strip our town and cities of the right to flexibly respond to and set their own public health policy within their own power. I urge the body to vote on the side of local control and oppose the pending motion so we may focus on more pressing needs. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Long. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Senator Sullivan.
I have a question for my colleague in District 11. Thank you for taking my question. Would you believe that the homesteading law across the state has not contributed to illness in our citizens at all?
I would most certainly believe that. Thank you for the question.
Follow up, would you believe that it was admitted in Manchester when the health department came to us that they were picking and choosing which of these ordinances they created that they were actually enforcing, and therefore this creates a level playing field for all homesteading people?
I do in fact believe that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Again, the bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 418. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Election Law and Municipal Affairs, to which was referred Senate Bill 223 FN, an act relative to using college or university student identification cards to obtain a ballot. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 5-0. Senator Gray for the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 223, inexpedient to legislate. Senate Bill 223 would offer in-state tuition at any institution within New Hampshire University or community college systems for the students registered to vote in the state. During the hearing, testimony indicated that passing this bill would result in a significant increase in tuition costs across the board. For these reasons, the Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee recommended inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 223. However, after speaking with one of my colleagues, I was asked to vote down the ITL so an amendment may be made. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Gray. So we have had a request from Senator Gray to, instead of adopting the inexpedient to legislate motion, that he is asking us to vote that down so a different motion can be made. So if you agree, the first vote will be to vote down the amendment. The bill. Senator Perkins-Coca?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of the pending motion of inexpedient to legislate because, as my colleague from District 6 said in the hearing, we heard a lot of evidence that this bill was definitely not ready for prime time now, if ever, and there were a list of concerns that were raised. So I would ask my colleagues to join me in supporting the pending motion of inexpedient to legislate.
Thank you, Senator. Okay. The current motion is inexpedient to legislate. There has been a request that we vote down the inexpedient to legislate so a different motion can be made. So are you ready for the question? All in favor of the inexpedient to legislate, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. No. The noes have it. So we now are looking for a motion on the adoption of the recommendation. Excuse me, I think I'm a little ahead of myself. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? No. Okay. Senator Sullivan's recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass and bring forward an amendment.
Okay. So we are looking at floor amendment number 0189S has been proposed, and you're recognized to speak to your floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to introduce Amendment 0189S, and I would like to speak to the content of that amendment. This amendment would ensure the integrity of our elections by requiring a government-issued ID for the purpose of voting. For too long, we've allowed a form of identification that simply does not meet the basic criteria and basic standards required to safeguard voting integrity. Student IDs are notoriously easy to forge, unlike government-issued IDs, which incorporate advanced security features like holograms, microprinting, and infrared ink. Student IDs from colleges and high schools often lack these protections. A basic printer could replicate one with alarming ease. In an era where technology makes counterfeiting simpler than ever, we cannot afford to rely on something so vulnerable. We need to protect the sanctity of every vote cast in our state. Furthermore, student IDs do not adequately verify key eligibility requirements for voting. They are issued to anyone enrolled in the New Hampshire institution, including international students, out-of-state students who may not be U.S. citizens or domiciled here. This creates concerns that undermine public confidence in our system. New Hampshire balances accessibility with security by offering a free ID precisely for voting purposes. This isn't a barrier. It's a baseline standard, much like the ID required to board a plane, open a bank account, get a job, or even drive a car. I ask for your support in this common sense approach to secure the integrity of our elections and the protection of each and every voter. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The discussion is on the adoption of floor amendment 0189S. Is there any discussion? Senator Perkins Coca.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise against the motion to pass on this amendment. So as I mentioned, this bill was initially voted ITL, and while I appreciate that the amendment removes the concerns about university funding, which is a significant improvement, it still seems like a solution looking for a problem. We did some asking around to college towns about sort of the use of student IDs. It's not frequently something that people provide, but it is only sort of one piece of the puzzle here. Obviously, we all know to vote in our state, we need to prove 4 things, right? Age, citizenship, identity, and domicile. And so using a student ID as something that a student might have in their pocket to go vote for the first time because they forgot to bring their license, they still need to have something with them to show an address. They still need to establish their citizenship. If for some reason those don't line up, our election officials are there to look at them. So this seems to me like this is basically just taking a tool out of the toolbox in terms of the students being able to show up to the polls, exercise their constitutional right to vote, and sort of undermines the ability of our local election officials to use their brains, look at the evidence in front of them, and verify that this is an eligible voter, just like they do in every other circumstance. So we are opposed to this bill in general, and even though the amendment somewhat of an improvement, we just don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perkins Coca. The question is on the adoption of floor amendment 0189S. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Okay, seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 223. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the bill is ordered to the Committee on Finance. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on...
Sent to Finance because of the amendment to the bill. That bill no longer needs to go to Finance and may be waived because it has removed the expenses that were in there. So if we can rescind the motion to go to Finance, then I, as the Chair of Finance, would waive that bill.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to rescind the third order, ordering it to Finance on the recommendation of the Chair of Senate Finance, and the bill will just be ordered to third reading. Without objection. Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 123 FN, an act requiring coverage of ear acupuncture as a treatment for substance misuse under state Medicaid plan. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 6-0. Senator Gray for the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 123 FN. Inexpedient to legislate, this bill would require the state Medicaid program to cover ear acupuncture as a treatment for substance abuse. DHHS estimates the bill overall impact on the state funds to be between $1 million and $5 million. The department has confirmed there is still no change in the level of evidence backing the treatment. The Senate Finance Committee recommends inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 123 FN and ask for your support. But again, talking with the others, there is some evidence out there, and we want to recognize that so that additional information on the question of its physical impact and its efficacy can be investigated. We would ask for you to vote against the ITL so another motion may be made.
Thank you, Senator Gray. The pending motion is inexpedient to legislate, and I recognize Senator Rochford to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a little background. Senate Bill 123 originally came through Health and Human Services last year. It came out of committee 5-0. Of course, we know that's a policy committee. But the underlying issue here is addiction and addiction treatment. And nationally, we know that tax dollars are being spent on harm reduction practices such as boofing kits, safe injection sites, medication-assisted therapy sometimes comes up into thousands of dollars a month per patient. What we're talking about here in Senate Bill 123, it's coverage for a 1,000-year-old Chinese medicine practice. And we heard in committee, when we originally heard this a year ago, that these treatments are costing $12 to $15 per treatment. So I support overturning the ITL, and so we can consider another motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of the Finance Committee's unanimous ITL motion. Finance held this bill over from last year in case there was evidence of more clinical utility for substance use disorder treatment. There is some data showing effectiveness for other uses, but not good evidence for substance use disorder. Before the committee met to vote, I asked Dr. Ballard, who's the state's chief medical officer, if there had been more conclusive evidence of effectiveness published over the last year. He surveyed the medical literature again and confirmed there was not. What his email specifically said was, quote, I reviewed the current evidence again for auricular acupuncture and determined that there is still no change in level of evidence. There is some limited evidence of its use, but not conclusive as an evidence-based beneficial treatment that meets the Medicaid level of medical necessity. I should also mention that Medicaid currently doesn't cover acupuncture at all for anything. So to cover this treatment modality for just one specific condition would certainly be unusual. Please support the committee report. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The pending motion on Senate Bill 123 is inexpedient to legislate. Senator Gray has asked us to vote down the committee recommendation so that another recommendation can come forward. Is there any further discussion on the inexpedient to legislate? Senator Sullivan?
Madam President, I rise to ask this body for the support of SB 123, a bill that passed the committee based on policy, but was given an ITL recommendation in finance. SB 123 would require Medicaid to pay for ear acupuncture as a course of treatment for substance use disorders. We have been ground zero in this battle for over a decade. We have invested and continue to invest millions into medically assisted treatments, which people have to stay on indefinitely. We're not doing enough when it comes to treating underlying causes of addiction. Ear acupuncture is a proven, innovative, affordable, and accessible treatment option. This protocol offers significant benefits for individuals struggling with substance use disorder. It is not voodoo, but a scientifically backed protocol that has been used since 100 BC. Modern medicine is integrating acupuncture into our public health strategies more and more. 8 other states are already requiring that Medicaid cover ear acupuncture for treatment of SUD. I believe that the finance report on SB 123 is flat out wrong. It took only into consideration the cost of people using this protocol. It did not account for the potential cost savings. A study on detoxification programs found that patients utilizing outpatient acupuncture were 29 to 39% less likely to be readmitted for detoxification within a 6-month period compared to those in traditional treatment alone. A systematic review of 36 studies found that 64% reported its effectiveness for addictions like opioids, cocaine, and alcohol. While traditional inpatient detox can cost from $800 for detox up to $10,000 for inpatient treatment, Medicaid rates for acupuncture are estimated to be less than $20 per treatment. Patients on the protocol saw reduced cravings and avoided costly emergency room visits and medical interventions. Auricular acupuncture has been shown to significantly reduce withdrawal symptoms, including cravings, insomnia, physical discomfort, allowing for individuals to better engage in their recovery journey. In studies involving opioid use disorder, participants receiving this treatment reported fewer cravings and improved sleep, leading to lower rates of relapse. Ear acupuncture also addresses the mental and emotional toll of addiction. It alleviates anxiety, depression, and stress, common barriers to sustained recovery. This holistic impact is crucial as mental health challenges often perpetuate the cycle of substance misuse. Moreover, programs utilizing this protocol have demonstrated higher treatment completion rates, up to 74% versus 44% in control groups, along with fewer inpatient days. More importantly, it increases the quality of life of people fighting their way through addiction. Unlike methadone, which requires a daily visit to a clinic, which makes employment nearly impossible, ear acupuncture can be done at a time that works into a person's work schedule, but also has the potential to provide people freedom from lifelong dependency on pharmaceuticals. Ear acupuncture is an evidence-based tool. It empowers individuals to reclaim their lives. It fosters resilience, reduces harm, and supports long-term sobriety without enslaving people into the bondage of drugs like methadone and Suboxone. Since 2014, we've spent over $223 million in medication-assisted treatment. It's time we tried something new. I'm asking that you vote to overturn the ITL so another motion may be brought forward. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The current motion is inexpedient to legislate. We've had a request from Senator Gray to vote down the inexpedient to legislate, so another motion may come forward. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the inexpedient to legislate, say aye. Aye. All those opposed to the inexpedient to legislate? No. No. Okay. The noes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate has failed. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Gray?
I move ought to pass.
Okay, Senator Gray moves ought to pass. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I now move to table. That's right. I can't do it until somebody
So we have had a motion, okay. We have had a motion of ought to pass. So is there anyone who would like to speak to the ought to pass motion? So the current motion is ought to pass. Is there any further discussion? Senator Sullivan.
I would just like to say what I said previously and ask you to vote ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Gannon.
Senator Gannon.
Really brief. I tend to listen to our chief medical expert, Chief of Medicine, Dr. Ballard, and his statement that he did not think that there's evidence-based proof to put this forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is Senator Lang?
Madam Chair, I rise in support of the ought to pass motion. I think in all of the above type of message on when it comes to substance abuse is an important thing. Holistic nutrition, these are all things we should try before we start using pharmacology to take care of this. So I fully support this idea, but I also understand there'll probably be a tabling motion. We may not have the money, and we want to put it on our priority list, so I'll support the ought to pass.
The question is on the adoption of the recommendation of ought to pass on Senate Bill 123. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted. I recognize Senator Gray.
Move to table.
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion has been adopted.
This one is immediately, but
Yes,
I'm
I
going to
know.
read it in.
Okay. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 406 FNA, an act making an appropriation to the City of Nashua for the purpose of purchasing the former Daniel Webster College property. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 4 to 2. Senator Birdsall for the committee.
Senator Birdsall.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to table.
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. But we're in the voting mode because the motion to lay on the table is non-debatable.
Madam President, isn't it our usual process that you allow parliamentary inquiries? And I had stood up before you called the question.
What I have here just says we're moving right to the fact that it's non-debatable, and we moved into the voting mode. If you would like to offer a parliamentary inquiry, please do so now, and we'll just retake the vote.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I'll try to be quicker on my feet next time. Madam President, if I know that last year, amid national security concerns, the majority leaders successfully sponsored a bill to prevent certain countries, including China, from owning property in New Hampshire. And if I know that the 53-acre site in question has the potential to be developed for some of the 90,000 units of housing our state needs to accommodate and grow our workforce and our economy. And finally, Madam President, if I believe it's hypocritical to pass legislation that prevents our adversaries from owning property in New Hampshire, and then not only pick and choose which pieces of property to complain about, but further blame the city of Nashua, which was not involved in either property sale, would I now vote no on the motion. Thank you. And I request a roll call.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Lang for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam President. If I know this is a $20 million price tag, and that if I also know that this is a gift to the city of Nashua, because once the state buys it, they're going to gift that land to the city of Nashua. And further, if I know that this will take that piece of property off the tax rolls and now be city property, and therefore raising the taxes of every citizen in Nashua, would I support the tabling motion?
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Oh, that's right, she requested, but there has been no second. Okay, so Senator Rosenwald has requested a roll call. Senator Fenton has seconded. Do you want to speak to the roll call? You certainly can. Today's the day.
And being the other senator from Nashua, if I knew that this property, Madam President, was offered in 2017 at $11 million and was refused by the aldermanic board, would I now still support the tabling motion? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
Nope.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McHugh.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon. No. Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Bertzel.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes.
16 to
The ayes have it. By a vote of 16 to 8, the motion has been adopted and the bill laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill 481 FNA, an act relative to the sale of the Sununu Youth Services Center property and making an appropriation to the Youth Development Center Settlement Fund. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 4 to 1. Senator Gray for the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 481 FNA ought to pass with amendment. This bill would make an appropriation to the Youth Development Center Settlement Fund. Initially, the Senate Finance Committee recommended the bill be ITL'd. The LBAO then made the committee members aware that Sections 2 and 3 of the bill were intended to fix a conflict in sections of HB 2, namely Sections 181 and 357, regarding the sale of the Sununu Youth Development property. The committee reconsidered its earlier action and crafted an amendment to delete the appropriation to the Youth Development Center Settlement Fund in Section 1 and keep Sections 2 and 3 and change the effective date to take effect upon passage. The Senate Finance Committee recommends passage of Senate Bill 481 FNA with the amendment and asks for your support. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Gray. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to oppose the committee amendment because it strips out the money to replenish the Youth Development Center Assault Fund. As you remember, the agreement that former Senate President Bradley and Attorney General Formella worked out with the Plaintiffs' Council called for up to $75 million per year to be allocated to settle cases, keeping them out of the more expensive court system and reducing trauma to the victims and embarrassment to the state's governors and attorneys general going back 50 years. Despite the agreement that Senator Bradley and AG Formella worked so hard on, the legislature only appropriated $20 million in general funds for this biennium and called for the property to be sold by the end of fiscal year 27, with the proceeds to go to the settlement fund. But because the fund has run out of money to settle new cases, only 5 of the nearly 1,700 pending cases were settled this fall. Nearly 200 cases are ready to be settled, but there is no money to do so. As we know, the AG does have the ability to ask the fiscal committee for general funds for this purpose. However, this is not ideal for 2 reasons. First, the fiscal committee only represents the governor's priorities, not the legislature's, because only the governor and the executive branch agencies can put items on the agenda. Secondly, going to fiscal is not particularly accountable or transparent because there are only 10 members of the 424 between our chamber and our friends again on the other side of the wall who are on this committee. So any funding request would not get a vote by the full legislature. I know that we all share a real horror about the shocking abuse that children suffered over decades while in the care of the state. And I also know that we don't want to re-traumatize the victims or have these abuses play out in public during jury trials if we can avoid it. For these reasons, the confidential settlement fund process makes total sense, and we should fund it so that we can settle the cases. To strip out the funding is to turn our backs on the victims and put the state on the hook for much higher cost going forward for more than a decade. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any further discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 481. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Finance, to which was referred, sent House Bills 723 FN, an act repealing multi-use energy data platform. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 6-1. House Senator Pearl to the committee.
Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 723 FN ought to pass. This bill repeals the requirement for electric and natural gas utilities to establish and jointly operate a statewide multi-use online energy data platform. The repeal eliminates the obligation for utilities to invest in the development and ongoing operation of the platform. Citing concerns with the cost of the platform and the fact that the cost would likely be passed on to ratepayers, including state and municipal entities, through utility rates, the Senate Finance Committee recommends passage of House Bill 723 FN and asks for your support. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Waters?
Thank you, Madam President. I rise against the motion of ought to pass. This is 6 years of collaborative consensus building work on a data platform governance council, and it has reached a conclusion. I think there had been some frustration in the Energy Committee and other over the years about why this took so long. but it was a complicated process. And in fact, the very day this body last voted on HB 723, the Public Utilities Commission presented their status report to the Governor and Council, which said that they were ready to issue the RFP. All the problems have been worked out with the utilities, the advocates, ratepayer groups, and so on. And so they were ready to go. And the PUC was now, of course, in the process waiting on us to see whether they can take that 6 years of work, which is going to save money for New Hampshire ratepayers or not. Now, the data platform was developed to centralize gas and electricity usage data across utilities. So what? Well, what that enables is improved grid modernization. It means efficiency planning. Most importantly, it means power to the people. Consumers of power would know from the data when they can save power or use it more efficiently, and that includes our municipalities. These are key goals. These are key goals in New Hampshire's energy policy that was just released by the Department of Energy. You know, our electricity rates are 39% higher right now than the nation's average. A lot of reasons for that, but there are also some things that we can do about it. This is a primary effort, 6 years of work, to find methodologies through data usage platform that we can reduce costs. It's the culmination of 6 years of work. You know, we heard from Public Advocate, we heard from Community Power Coalition, which provides power to a lot of our communities. We heard from consumers, we heard from other stakeholders. And you know, why does this work? Well, what it does is it gives residential ratepayers freedom to use enabling technology to depend on access to customer energy usage data. So you can tell when I'm using power and then what the cost is likely to be. If I can do that load of laundry later in the evening, or I can, you know, run the dishwasher, or I can do this or that in other times of day, I know I'm going to save power. And then it also allows folks who might have battery storage, like it allows municipalities to know when the power is cheaper so they can put power into the batteries, and then when they can put it out into when it's most needed, when we see peak demand. On a larger scale, what this lets us do is save a lot of money. It's estimated $27 million of direct savings over the first 5 years of this platform, $94 million of savings over 10 years. This is probably the only vote we can take to cut energy costs in the state. And any legislation we have before us, this can do it right away for people. This is the one vote we can probably take to actually do something about energy costs. And I'll say as well that, you know, we had terrific hearings in the Energy Committee on Tuesday, about an hour and a half on issues about why is energy cost so much? Do we need more generation? Well, we heard, you know, actually the projected rate of growth by ISO New England is not that many percentage a year. We've got to be ready if data centers are coming, this and that. But, you know, that's not the main thing, is lack of generation. We're a surplus generator of electricity in New Hampshire because of Seabrook. The big problem, though, is what happens in peak demand. What happens when we have a cold snap like this, when, you know, the LNG is going over to Europe primarily now, or we're firing up those unreliable oil-fired plants, which break down a lot, and they just sit there and they cost a lot. So we had one day last week where the power cost in Maine was actually negative $43, but in our state it was positive $270 in the rest of the states. Well, why was that? Transmission problem. They've added 1,600 gigawatts of power up in Maine with solar and onshore wind over the last few years, and they had the power, but they couldn't get it down to us. So it's grid modernization. But we have ways to shave that peak demand through demand response programs. We already have some now with, we can, you know, ask factories to shut down their electricity usage at certain times if these, and they get a better deal from the power companies to do that. That sends that successful program statewide. So we see some states who during these spikes because of weather, because of cold, because of whatever, that if they can reduce that peak demand in the evening hours when the power is so damn expensive, we save a lot of money for New Hampshire consumers. And there's lots of ways to do that, but we've got to have the data to know how to do it and when to do it. So I just hope that we can not vote this bill through. We could have, if we vote this down, we can retain it. We can let this platform go forward, and we can always see how it's working. But $94 million, that's what's sitting here. $94 million, right? Are we going to let it drop to the floor, or are we going to grab it for our constituents? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the prevailing motion is ought to pass. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 723. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Senate Bill 553 FN, an act relative to penalties for attempting to elude pursuit by law enforcement. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill be re-referred to interim study by a vote of 4-0. Senator Abbas for the committee.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to table.
Okay, the motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor? Yes. Yes, you may have a PI.
Thank you, Madam President. If I know I'm between you guys and lunch, I'll be very fast. If I know that this bill was brought to me by my local police department to help with dangerous pursuits, and if I also know that public safety is paramount, and that's why I brought it forward with the help of my bipartisan colleagues, and it is important that we protect our law enforcement and community members, but I also know that this bill is being addressed in another bill that out-pursued mine, that I would now vote yes on the table.
Thank you, Senator. You don't want to, okay. Okay, the motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion has been adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred Senate Bill 634, an act enabling municipalities to adopt a municipal occupancy fee. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3-2. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 634, inexpedient to legislate. This bill will enable municipalities to adopt a local occupancy tax on room rentals. The committee heard testimony that municipalities need more funding to cover costs associated with tourism, such as police, fire, and EMS. The committee also heard concerns with the bill regarding oversight, administration costs, and why the bill targets only the lodging industry. Some committee members expressed concern that this bill could actually backfire and deter tourism as people get tired of surprise fees. Additionally, the state already sends an increased share of the meals and rooms tax back to municipalities, thanks to the senator from District 9 over there. And it is up to the municipalities to prioritize their needs and allocate those dollars from the rooms and meals tax accordingly. It's also noted that hotels already pay local property taxes, which should go towards the very cost of these services the supporters claim they need additional funding for. For this reason, I ask for your support on a motion of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the motion of inexpedient to legislate. And it's quite timely that next Monday, is it next Monday, is Groundhog Day. Because for me, this is Groundhog Day. As a city councilor, I came down here from a regional municipal hub to talk about having a municipal occupancy fee local option. As a mayor, I came down here to talk about the same thing. And that year, we actually got it past the House, okay? And twice, this is my second time being in the Senate, that I have brought forward a like type of bill. So I'll save the quiz on what the song was on the alarm clock that Bill Murray keeps hitting in the movie Groundhog Day. I'll give you a few minutes to think about this while, he's waiting to see what Puxatawny Phil does. That being said, 634, so you got a quiz there, you can't look it up, enables New Hampshire municipalities to adopt a local option municipal occupancy fee on room rentals subject to approval by voters of the local or the local legislative body. The purpose of this fee is to establish a municipal capital improvement fund, a tourism fund, a revolving fund, or other special revenue fund to offset costs of tourism or transient traffic and to support local economic activity. Regional hubs, in particular, the 13 cities in our state, feel the most pressure from the, and I love the businesses, I love the hotels, and the different ways that people come into the city that I live in, but at the same time, there are costs, and it's like being upside down and alone. And I'm going to address the upside down and alone in particular, talk about meals and revenue sharing, meals and rooms revenue sharing in a few minutes. But I just want to point out that under this bill, municipalities may charge up to $2 of an occupancy fee per 24-hour period. It's a flat daily charge or a percentage of the room price, and it doesn't exceed that $2. The fee does not apply to room rentals averaging $40 or less per night and may only be charged for up to 184 consecutive days. Enforcement of this mirrors existing municipal enforcement for ordinances that municipalities are used to developing, implementing, and enforcing. The revenue collected must be segregated from the general fund and may only be used for voter-approved or council, local legislative body approved purposes, such as municipal services related to tourism. Especially, we hear a lot I know in my city and other cities and towns in the state about infrastructure-related costs or visitor impacts. Adoption would require a public hearing or a ballot vote in a town or city or approval by a city legislative body. God bless you. So with the same process available to rescind this fee. Now, I want to talk about respectfully, I'm so grateful to have seen the work that was done, as the senator from District 2 pointed out, the senator from District 9 in her first term brought forward the fact that we needed to actually start meeting our obligation as a state and sharing meals and rooms revenue back with our cities and towns. It was a 15-year period where we didn't have any of this revenue. Okay. In addition to that, starting, I believe it was in 2011, because it was early for me on the city council, we saw a drop in the state's contribution to the retirement system, which pushed those costs onto the communities. I remember this number like it was yesterday, how $383,000 of unplanned costs came back to the taxpayers in Lebanon because the state downshifted additional costs. So what I'm trying to say here is that the revenue sharing, as it's been restored, is appreciated and it's important, but we had a significant period of time where we didn't have this available to us. We also saw in an overlapping that period of time, the downshifting of retirement system costs to the communities. So this means that local legislative bodies that I respect, who know their communities best, had to make choices. They weren't frivolous in these choices, but if you had, say, sidewalks that needed to be repaired, you might not be able to do that because you now have this cost that you have to fill in the retirement system. You are using a paramedic term, an EMT term, they were triaging every day. This required at times us to borrow money and actually incur costs related to the borrowing of that money that we would never wanted to do, but needed to do in order to meet our basic municipal needs. So I believe that this is a tool that we should let local municipal governments and/or their taxpayers, depending on how they're structured, make this decision. I wasn't in the legislature then, but I was on the city council when we were given the ability to decide whether to put Keno on the ballot. But we can't put this on the ballot. I think that, to me, this is a much more pressing issue. The city I live in right now, the great city of Lebanon, is struggling with property tax burdens to the point where a property tax cap is up for a vote in March. And I hear this throughout my district, and I know you're all hearing it too, because I read about it in the newspaper. So we have an opportunity here to actually build prosperous, affordable communities by putting a tool like this in place, recognizing that there have been two costs I've specified here, downshifted, that have put our cities and towns with gaps that they've had to fill. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is expedient to legislate. Excuse me. Is there any further discussion? Senator Perkins Coca.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I would just rise to ask the body to vote down the inexpedient to legislate motion, so another motion can be made. If there was, I have a floor amendment to offer, but I echo a lot of the comments that my colleague just made. I know my colleague from District 2 mentioned there was some conversation in committee about potentially something like this backfiring. You know what else might backfire? The smell of the trash on the decks in Portsmouth if we don't pick it up after a tourist weekend. So having made 4 municipal budgets, I understand the revenue pieces that come into this. I understand the capital improvements that go into this. We've restored a little bit of rooms and meals to the towns and cities, but everybody would miss Portsmouth's contribution to the state coffers if we weren't providing the municipal services we do. So, I think that part of this money could be used to provide housing for our businesses that desperately need workforce. So that's something we could discuss if this motion is overturned. Thank you.
Senator. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 634. Is there any further discussion? Senator Lang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's interesting to hear the revenue has gone up a little bit, when the reality is since 2020, the average increase to a town was 104%, a doubling of the revenue directly from rooms and meals and the very tourism people we're talking about, the tourists that are showing up, and yet towns can't seem to find the funds to do this. Again, I think that this is a statewide issue and that they have the allocations. We're on target again this year to provide more money than last year. Towns are seeing this revenue. It's up to them to decide locally, local control, how they're going to expend those funds and whether the funds they receive directly from the tourism industry will help to offset problems that they're saying they have. And again, don't forget that every one of these tourism businesses are paying property taxes for the very police, the very trash pickup that the towns have. And they're asking for additional money on top of the property tax and on top of the rooms and meals tax. Now they want a local tax. I think it's a really bad idea. I think it's a bad idea for the state tourism industry as a whole, and I urge you to support the ITL.
Thank you, Senator Lang. Senator Birdsall?
President, just after Christmas, the state treasurer sent out the annual rooms and meals distributions to cities and towns across New Hampshire. This year, their share totaled more than $140 million. That's more than double what we were sending back to local taxpayers before we changed the rooms and meals revenue sharing formula. Thank you, Senator. 5 years ago. Now, some local officials, they want to impose a local tax on hotel guests. This is not the Granite State way. We don't need to tax families enjoying their ski weekends up north, families visiting their kids at the New Hampshire colleges, or families vacationing at the lakes during the summer. We do not want to put any barriers up for tourists who are so vital to New Hampshire's four-season economy. I'm always happy when tourists are coming here to New Hampshire and leave their money. Let's not drive tourists away to other states by getting too greedy. Let's not add another surprise bill to hotel bills. Let me tell you, I I've done a lot of traveling this year, last year. And when I go into these cities and towns and I see my hotel bill, the hotel bill, you expect that. But when you see all the taxes that they add on to it, it gets exorbitant. And I don't want to be them. So please, vote ITL on Senate Bill 634. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Abbas, and then Senator Perkins Coker to speak again.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Tourism is our #1 industry in this state. Creating a new local tax on that is not good for this state and certainly not encourage people to come to this state. So please support the committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Prentice is recognized to speak for a second time.
A question,
A
actually.
question? Okay.
I have a question of the senator from District 21.
will
And I might
take
actually have two. Okay?
Okay, we'll keep
All right,
track.
just,
I'm ready.
all right, so thank you. So being a former city councilor in Portsmouth, during the time when the 15 years that this revenue sharing was not available to us, how did you manage when you had needs that impacted your residents every day?
Thank you for the question, Senator Prentice. I mean, obviously, we did our job. We made a capital improvement plan. You know, we figured out a way to sort of make sure the taxpayers were able to accommodate it. And actually, the tax rate, you know, in our case sort of stabilized. But I think what we're hearing today in the debate is this 104% increase of not much is not much. You know, Portsmouth is on the record having received an additional $700,000. Our municipal budget is $140 million. That's not going to really help us. You know, we contribute, in Portsmouth's case, $40 to $50 million to the state coffers. So to get back $700,000 is not necessarily something that's even going to move the needle on this. So I think what we're asking for is something that's reasonable, and it just gives municipalities more tools.
Follow-up? Thank you. Do communities have to do this? If we pass this, do communities have to do this? Does this become an option for them to use as a fee?
It is a local option.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator, did you have another question? You? Okay. Senator Perkins Coker to speak again.
Yeah, if I may, can I ask a question instead of my colleague from District 5?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Prentice. Thank you, my colleague from District 5, for taking my question. We just heard that, you know, this fee might impact the tourism industry. Have you ever heard of another case in which New Hampshire collects fees or sort of costs from out-of-staters to pay for costs that are incurred in state? Can you think of any other examples?
What? It's not, did you say it's not a trick question?
It's not a trick question. Would you believe, for example, that our toll rates...
I was going to talk about the tolls. You know, I was like, here's the type of fee when somebody is passing through. I mean, I'm like, is this a trick question? But hey, I mean, the most basic, driving on the interstates, some of the interstates, when you go through a toll, you pay a fee, and out-of-staters pay that fee for the use of our roads. So, thank you for the question.
Follow-up, if I may.
Follow-up question?
Would you believe that it's a best practice to actually use user fees when you're trying to account for the cost of something? And in this case, what we're actually doing is localizing the cost of our sidewalks, of our trash pickup, of our water usage, and our roads to the people that are using it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask another question?
I just want to know if anybody, well, actually, somebody has figured out what song was playing. I don't know if you want to wait till the end of the debate or not.
Okay.
I've got you, baby. What? There you go. You and Chief of Staff Harold Parker, you got it. Thank you very much.
What was it? I didn't.
I've got you, babe.
Oh, I've got you,
Just
babe.
letting you know. Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay, Senator Sullivan has a question of?
Of my colleague in District 2. Thank you for taking my question. Is it true that we heard in committee that there was a concern from small businesses, like the quaint inn owners in our state, that this was going to have an adverse effect on them more than larger businesses?
Absolutely, that was true. We had some bed and breakfast people that came in that was said that if their town choose to adopt this, it would have a negative impact to their business.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
I recognize Senator Ricciardi to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't planning to, but in this debate that we're having, it sort of falls in line and answers one of the questions, which is, my family and I were invited to a wedding in Portsmouth last June. And I wasn't told on the phone when I made the reservations, but I got to the hotel and they gave me this hefty fee. They called it a destination fee. And I said, well, what is it for? Well, here, you can use this amount we're charging you in our restaurant. I said, well, we're eating at a wedding. I don't want to go to the restaurant. So there is other places doing these types of fees. And I called and complained and got my money back. But it's not okay to do this. It's a surprise fee. And this reminded me of it. So there are fees being charged in other ways to people who are tourists in New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Senator Gray?
Thank you, Madam President. There's been a lot of talk about, being mayor, being on the council, being on whatever, and how these costs affect people. Well, I've been on the planning board. I've been on the school board. I've been on the city council for over 10 years. I was a moderator of a ward for almost 30 years, if you count up all the times I tried to give it away and they gave it back to me. Hotels, restaurants, and all those amenities, and we might as well talk about shopping centers too, they pay lots of property taxes, And if I look at Rochester, the Ridge is one of the most popular locations for shopping in the state. But these hotels and other things, the people that are staying there don't pay schools, don't influence how many people are in the schools. And the school budget in Rochester is well over half of the cost to run the city. The restaurants, okay? I go, certainly, there's a restaurant in Rochester that I frequently go to. My wife told me when I retired that she was going to go out to eat a lot more. But, those things, those amenities, those things that attract the people to there pay much more of the cost of running those cities and towns than we really are talking about here. If I don't have the deck cleaned off, the people aren't going to come. So no matter whether you take it or not, you're not going to get those property taxes because we're going to shut that place down. Okay? So the effect on the towns, the first time that I heard this one, it was Hampton. Hampton says, well, I got to take care of this, and I got to take care of that, and I got to take care of these other things. And complaining about all those other people from parts of New Hampshire that were coming down and creating this need for them to do these things. Rochester doesn't have a beach, Rochester doesn't have a ski hill, okay? If my residents want to go somewhere, and now you want to say, not only do you have to pay the fee, whatever it is, but you're going to have to pay a tax too. Is that what I want to do? Absolutely not. So, the effect on the cities and towns is taken care of by the property taxes. Those people that are using these amenities don't, fire, police. Yeah, they're there. Schools, all those things that they really don't use. Yes, they use the road, okay? But you want that road in good shape because you want them there, because you want those property taxes, you want those other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gray. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call has been requested by Senator Birdsall, seconded by Senator Avard.
I'm ready. Do we have a
The- No, where is Senator? Okay. Is Senator? Okay. Okay. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 634. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. The clerk will call the roll. Sorry, thank you for reminding me.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
No.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGee.
Yes.
Senator Avar.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Bertzel.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Cook.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes.
It's 15 to 9.
The ayes have it. By a vote of 15 to 9, the motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which it was referred, Senate Bill 636 FN, an act establishing tax credits with qualifying small business against documented tariff-related costs. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate. By a vote of 3 to 2, Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 636, inexpedient to legislate. This bill sought to establish a tax credit for businesses for documented tariff-related costs. Committee members expressed doubt over the business's ability to identify, track, and document tariff-related costs, and the uncertainty that initially surrounded tariffs no longer uncertainty that initially surrounded tariffs no longer exists and have settled down, and many of the retaliatory tariffs have been eliminated or reduced. The majority of the Ways and Means Committee did not believe that this bill was necessary, and therefore we ask for your support on a motion of inexpedient to legislate. I'll add that there was some concern at DRA to be able to also what documentation would be necessary to prove that this was a tariff cost, not a cost of business relative to interest charges or relative to inflation. The ability to identify strictly tariff costs were probably going to be problematic. And further, what happens if we have a supplier and a retailer? Do both of them get the tax credit because they both have increased costs and we're doubling down on the tax credit? The bill was problematic, and for that reason, I ask you to support the committee's recommendation of ITL.
Thank you, Senator Lang. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Fenton.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak against the ITL motion of Senate Bill 636. This bill was killed in committee on the argument that federal tariffs are cooling down and that relief is no longer necessary. And respectfully, that argument is detached from reality. Just in recent days, the President announced new and expanded tariffs. Businesses are not seeing stability, they are seeing escalation, uncertainty, and whiplash. And uncertainty is often worse than bad policy because it makes planning impossible. I know this firsthand because I own and operate a business. When you run a small business, you don't get a call from the White House explaining what's coming next. You don't get advance notice from the USTR, you just get invoices that are suddenly higher, sometimes overnight, and no guidance on whether those costs are temporary, permanent, or about to get worse. That lack of direction is crippling. Costs are sky high, they're not going down. Large corporations can hedge, they can move supply chains, they can absorb losses, but small businesses cannot. They operate on thin margins, fixed contracts, and real payroll obligations every single week. And Senate Bill 636 recognizes that reality. This bill does not pick winners and losers. It does not create an open-ended subsidy. It does not attempt to override federal trade policy. It simply acknowledges that when the federal government imposes tariffs, costs entirely outside the control of the New Hampshire businesses, that the state legislature's interest in helping local employers is to weather that disruption. There was an amended version of this bill that is narrow, disciplined, and responsible. It is capped. It is limited to true New Hampshire operating businesses. It gives the Department of Revenue clear authority to administrate and audit that credit. There were some drafting errors in this. I got lost in translation that I had an amendment to introduce in committee, but wasn't necessarily given that chance. I have that same amendment here today if we're so willing to do that. But colleagues, small businesses are not just another sector of our economy. They are the backbone of our economy. They employ our neighbors. They keep our downtowns alive. They hold communities together. If you guys need a sponsorship for your Little League team, first people you call is a small business here in New Hampshire. If we don't lose them, we don't just adjust, we fail. And once a small manufacturer or local employer closes or leaves this state, we don't easily get them back. This bill is about stability in a moment of chaos. It's about giving businesses breathing room when Washington provides none. And it's about standing with the people who take the risk, who make the payroll, and who keep New Hampshire running. If the concerns about tariffs, they are not going away. For those reasons, I urge you to overturn the ITL motion so that another motion can be made. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Who has requested the roll call? Senator Birdsall, is there a second? Senator Avard, and I recognize Senator Perkins-Coker to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise in opposition to the motion of inexpedient to legislate on SB 636. We have an obligation here in the State House to make sure we're listening and taking care of our small businesses and our constituents. To me, the last thing we should be doing is ignoring the federal overreach that's happening here that's really kind of trampling on our small businesses and consumers. For more than a year now, our businesses have been reacting, as my colleague from District 10 pointed out, with little or no notice, trying to adjust supply chains. I work for a small business. I've had to renegotiate some of these contracts, and they result in our small business owners putting more money out of their pocket just to keep our families employed, to keep their businesses running. And our small employers are unique. They are our friends, they're our neighbors, and having a small local business where the revenue and the payroll and the expenses all stay in New Hampshire, that's what helps drive our economy. And we're abandoning them. To say that at this time no measure is necessary to stabilize them is to ignore the experience of people like Jody Brenneman, who came into our hearing, who said she's been absorbing these costs for almost a year, and we've heard basically that over 75% of businesses are impacted by them. So I think failing to stabilize these businesses, failing to support affordability and not requiring Granite Staters to take more money out of their own pocket, and failing to stand up to the federal government on what was clearly a series of policy decisions that are sending our small businesses into tough places, means that in our mind, we're not protecting the New Hampshire economy, we're not protecting our Granite Staters, and we're not doing our job. So I hope you'll join me in voting against the ITL motion.
Thank you. Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Madam President. So I also rise in opposition to the motion. I have some firsthand experience. I think you all know that I love to bake. And one of my favorite places in my district to visit is a bakery in Hanover. And the owner of that bakery, now this is pre some of the exemptions, but there's a connection here. She spoke to me in November about the tariffs that were on cocoa and on coffee. And I remember specifically when she was talking about coffee, something else I treasure, where she said, I used to pay $500 a month for coffee, and now I am paying $1,200. She also uses a lot of chocolate for her baking. Now, since November, there have been some exemptions, and chocolate and coffee are on those, except for Brazilian coffee. And guess where she's from? Brazil. So this is a small business that's integral to my district, and there's a firsthand, real lived experience from a small business owner that could tell me exactly what this was costing her at that time. So this is real. This has to do with our small businesses. Senator Fenton, my colleague from District 10 and my colleague from District 21 have both pointed out, the small businesses are the backbone of our community. So thank you for your time. Again, I hope you'll join me in opposing the inexpedient to legislate motion. Thank you.
I thought you were going to say the King Arthur, just right up the road because you bake. To me, that would be a natural. That's where you'd be headed all the time.
I am.
The current motion is inexpedient to legislate. There has been a request for a roll call, and if we do vote this down, our colleague from District 10 would like to offer an additional motion, a different motion. Senator Perkins Coca with a question for?
Madam President, I have a question for my colleague from District 10. Have tariffs impacted your business, namely car prices?
Well, thank you for the question, and the answer is yes. It's not just automobile prices, it's prices on parts, and the difficult thing is that we don't have any direction on when these tariffs are coming, if they're on, if they're off, and as we heard in committee, oftentimes the small business owner said, I have no direction, and when I hear about tariffs, I only learn it from the news. And that's not how you can operate a business. You need stability and you need information, and we're not getting that.
Thank you. And a follow-up, if I may. Are China or the European Union, are other countries paying these tariffs?
No, the consumer's paying the tariffs.
Thank you.
Senator Reardon with a question of?
Thank you. My colleague from District 10.
Yes.
Thank you. It was said before that we have tariffs now and there's some certainty over what the tariffs are. Did the president just propose new 25% tariffs on Europe and South Korea?
He did. You know, if I have a bingo card, it's like I'm filling it out nonstop on these tariffs on different countries that continuously pop up. And that's the problem. That's what this bill addresses, is that, you know, these small businesses need help in this time of uncertainty.
Follow up, please. And do you believe the lack of ruling from the Supreme Court on tariffs furthers that uncertainty?
Immensely so.
Thank you.
Senator Lang is recognized for a question of?
Of the senator from District 10. Don't you just avoid all the tariffs? You just buy American?
Even American products are tariffed. What is, thank you for the question. The question is, so again, no more guidance. So what is an American product? Because tariffs, we can assemble a part here, but then it's shipped to Canada, that gets additional pieces on it, but then it's shipped back, and we have no guidance on what's actually being tariffed. That's the problem here too, is that we just don't know.
Follow. But again, if you buy a product that says that's made in America, grown in America, there's no tariff on it.
Well, I don't, thank you for the question. I don't grow cars in America.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is to, Senator Avard, if you have recognized for a question?
Senator from District 10, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe it's a silly question, but don't we pay tariffs to China and to these other European countries as well?
So thank you for the question. Tariffs they're global right now, but what we're focusing on right here is how we can help small businesses weather these tariffs.
Thank you.
The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on Senate Bill 636. A roll call has been requested and seconded, and the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice. No. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Bishardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McHugh.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Coca.
No.
Senator Addis.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Alshore.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it by a total of 16 to 8. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. We are at the conclusion of the regular calendar, and we'll take up the bills that were removed from the consent calendar. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Election Law and Municipal Affairs, to which is referred Senate Bill 439, an act relative to municipal data center zoning. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 5-0. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
I move ought to pass with amendment, and I'll speak after we're discussing the amendment.
The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? I will recognize Senator Lang and then Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So originally, this bill came to us as a multi-page bill regulating data centers. There was sidewalk requirements, tree height requirements, all kinds of things that were put into this bill. The committee felt that we wanted to make a clear statement, and what my one-page amendment does turns the bill to a one-page amendment that says data centers are allowed in all zoned areas of commercial and industrial, and they must follow all zoning ordinances. We kept the definition of a data center with one exception that was proposed in the original bill. The original bill had a 10% floor space, aggregate floor space requirement. That is way too low. That will cause problems for our hospitals. That'll cause problems for possibly our school districts. Again, because every data closet would be considered a part and a measured floor space. I use the example of I had a small business in Tilton where I hosted servers in my room for hospitals. I had a 3,600 square foot building. I used about 400 feet. I would then be restrictive to all the things that were in the original bill: sidewalk requirements, tree heights, what kind of vegetation for blocking sound requirements. Again, we think this is a local control issue. We want to make it clear to municipalities that these types of activities are allowed in commercial and industrial zones, not residential, not recreational, not agriculture. Commercial and industrial zones. If they exceed 25%, then that's the definition of a data center that's required, that's allowed in those zones. And lastly, again, we went back to all data centers must follow local zoning ordinances. So the town has the right to set whatever it wants to do, and the data center will have to manage it. But this is a local control, not the state saying how wide the sidewalk is or how big the trees are. This is allowed business to be occurred in the commercial and industrial zones of our municipalities. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Altshuler is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak against this amendment, 67482, as it alters a 1.5-page bill with 41 lines. So I'm not sure where all the multiple pages were. Maybe my colleague was reading a different bill. But 2 pages, 41 lines, and this amendment dramatically changes the potential impact on our cities and towns as we start to look at data centers. This amendment removes all of the necessary components to protect our communities. On the amendment on page 14, part 1, changes the language from the original bill that says on part 2, data centers shall not be permitted, the local legislative body may permit. And then the amendment says data centers are allowed. So as data centers develop, the acceleration of data center development nationwide, we were looking for strategic zoning regulations which have been removed from this original bill altogether. So cities and towns no longer would have the opportunity to electively, this is an enabling bill that would electively allow them to create a data center zone. And instead, this amendment just says they're allowed within zoning districts for commercial and industrial use, which have very, very different criteria. What we know is that we needed those strategic zoning regulations because it's essential to balance those economic benefits with community protection and infrastructure sustainability. This amendment takes that all away. Data centers don't really fit into the conventional commercial or industrial use that is mentioned in this amendment. They have a distinctive combination of high energy usage, low employment density, and significant infrastructure requirements which are not reflected in the amendment. They represent a unique building type that challenges traditional zoning classifications like commercial or industrial use in the amendment. Many jurisdictions currently treat data centers under vague classifications like light industrial or technological facilities, which fail to account, like this amendment, fails to account for the specific impacts, and it ignores the unconventional impacts by allowing data centers by right, which the impact is of the change to Part 1. It takes away establishing explicit zoning authorities from towns. And data centers are one of the fastest growing sources of electricity demand in the United States. This amendment ignores all of the electricity issues that come with a potential data center. This original bill, which now has in this amendment eliminated requiring written confirmation from serving electric utilities that adequate electrical capacity will be available within 2 years of construction, ignores the potential grid overload situations that can affect our existing customers and our communities. So this ignores the utility confirmation that would ensure our local decision makers have a grasp on, are able to understand the infrastructure constraints before they approve the projects. It would have addressed concerns that speculative data center proposals could possibly strain local grids without delivering a promised economic benefit. This amendment ignores the proposals of requirements of limiting noise, which I provided testimony that limiting noise to no more than 5% of ambient levels on residential property lines within 300 feet would have represented a balanced, technically sound approach. Putting it in a commercial or industrial land use by right doesn't give the towns the opportunity to put that into their approvals. So, in short, we know that, in fact, I provided testimony that between May of 2024 and March of 2025, opponents blocked or delayed data center projects totaling approximately $64 billion in 28 states. In the second quarter alone, 20 projects fell through. And those common concerns are written out of this bill by this amendment. Noise pollution affecting residential areas, not in the amendment. Strain on electrical infrastructure, not in the amendment. Water usage on cooling systems, also not in the amendment. Insufficient job creation relative to land consumption considerations, not in the amendment. Impact on property values and community character, not in the amendment. So, respectfully, this amendment takes away all of the potential powers that our local jurisdictions could have implemented through zoning supports. And that would not be inhibiting data center development. As a matter of fact, it would be giving clear boundaries, clear guidelines, which provide local decision makers with tools they need to make informed choices that benefit their communities economically while protecting residents, preserving appropriate land use, and ensuring that electrical grid capacity keeps pace with demand. Madam President, I ask this body to vote down this amendment so that another motion can be made. Thank you.
amendment. Senator Lang?
Again, I just want to clarify. A little bit of misrepresentation. Page 14 in your little yellow hymnals, right at the top of the page. Data centers are allowed within zoning districts designated commercial or industrial use and are subject to the provisions of local land use regulations. So again, towns have the right to do what they need to do, considering the project that's in front of them or otherwise. This is a clear, sometimes I get whiplash in this body. We talk about local control, and this is a clear local control bill giving the right of a town to set its division. What's needed for the senator in Districts 1's communities may be completely different than the senator from District 24, and allows those towns to write the provisions that they feel they need versus having a state mandate be pushed down on them, which is what the original bill did. Thank you.
Okay, the bill is on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any further discussion on the committee amendment? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say. Okay, roll call has been requested by Senator Altshuler, seconded by Senator Fenton. I think you need like one of those little hand things to just hold it up.
Hold on.
Okay. A roll call has been requested on the committee amendment to Senate Bill 439. Are you ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
I can hear talking. Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Bishardi.
Yes.
Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGee.
Yes.
Senator Avon.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Coca.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 16 to 8. Excuse me. And the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or floor amendment? Senator Perkins Coca is recognized to present her floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd rise to introduce floor amendment 2026-0352S. As my colleague from District 24 pointed out, we know from the experience of other states that there's been some concerns and sort of lessons learned from watching data centers move in. The original intent was to sort of just provide some time for our state to get used to a large emerging industry that requires a lot of energy and resources. And so, I know my colleague from District 2 brought us to page 14 in our hymnals. I would like to just point out that does read, data centers are allowed within zoning districts designated for commercial or industrial use. And yes, it also says subject to provisions of local land use regulations, but there are some pieces of data centers that other states are showing us that we want to be able to account for. So, some projections show that data center energy consumption could double or triple by 2028, which accounts for up to 12% of U.S. electricity usage. Some locations have seen their electricity costs increase by up to 267%. So I think having these data centers join our grid, compete for the limited energy we already have. We know we have price spikes in the winter. How is that going to affect the average Granite State household when they're already spending 9.4% of their income on energy prices? And, we haven't talked about the water usage, which, needs there needs to be water resources available, it needs to be discharged. So what this amendment does is basically just introduce a review of those sort of impacts on energy usage and on water usage when a new project is proposed. Obviously, local control is what we want to support, and also we just want to make sure that as a state we're acknowledging at the legislative level that we already have energy prices that are 39% higher than the national average, and so when we're standing on the precipice of something that could exacerbate that problem, we as a legislature should act to make sure that we're lowering costs for our Granite Staters. So I hope you'll join me in voting for this floor amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 0352. Senator Waters would like to speak, and so would Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. You know, I rise in support of this amendment, and I think it's a good caution for us to look at. And I will say that I like New Hampshire to be open for business. You know, I think we have to be nimble, we have to recognize changing technologies, and I have a lot of sympathy for support for some of the ideas put forward in the underlying, in the underlying bill. I do think that it's important, though, that we should be a little more cautious here. Those of us who attended the Energy Summit down in Boston in December could hear from the CEO of Google and of Constellation and Hut 8, and these are the big players who actually invest in and build these things. And they all said to a person when asked, we're not interested in New Hampshire. And there's some reasons why. One was that they can't build something big enough up here, that they don't need something big enough up here. There's a 500,000 megawatt one down in Westfield. That's probably it for something large in the region for a whole lot of reasons. There is potential for a 200 megawatt down in Massachusetts because the state has actually put money in to subsidize it so that it could serve particular needs for hospitals, universities, and other research facilities in Boston. So they're willing to put some money in, but at that scale, 200 megawatts, the industry is not interested. The second thing is that they want to be able to go in where they know they can get power and they know they can get quick approval. These places want to start building in 3 to 6 months. And if they can't do it in one place, they're going to go somewhere else. That's the nature of it because the technology changes, and they've just got to be really quick at it. So I think what that means is that we do have some time. I think this makes some sense. We did something like this in some other things, industrial zones. What complicates it in New Hampshire, however, is to look at the legislation we passed last year that said that if you want to do one of these things, you got to bring your own power supply. Now, that bill was tailored for small modular reactors, which, again, I think could be a solution for a lot of these things, but it's 5 to 7 years out for those. But it does mean that it raises issues about siting, it raises issues about interconnection. And we have a lot of interconnection problems in the state. I talked earlier about grid modernization and so on. There are maybe 2 sites that we could build one of these. One would be in the Newington area, one might be in Merrimack. At Merrimack Station in Bow, because there is about a gigawatt of connection in each site. But I'm just trying to say this is complicated. I don't think we need to do this right now. I like the amendment here because it at least says let's chat with the Department of Energy and let's chat with DES because of the issues I've raised. But I don't think we need to rush. I think we're going to be a bridegroom left waiting at the altar in some ways. We're all ready, but nobody comes. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lang is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to the amendment. This amendment brings it back down to 10%, which is going to create problems within our communities for things like hospitals and schools because it's 10%. If I just have a 1,000 square foot building and I put a 10 by 10 room, I'm now subject to all these provisions of energy that aren't necessarily true, but a 10 by 10 room in a 100 square foot house or building or facility now would be classified as a data center and be subject to the energy rules. So that's unreasonable for our community. You'll notice they took out the provision at commercial industrial, so now we've thrown open the gates again to communities not knowing and giving direction to them to let them know where these things are provided. Are they allowed in agricultural zones, residential, recreational zones? The idea is we want clear direction, commercial, industrial, and you can set your rules. Lastly, when we talk about power, the senator from District 4 is exactly right. I was at Google with the senator from District 15. We had this discussion about data centers, and New Hampshire's not a place they're looking for, with the exception of we've made it an energy-friendly facility if they choose to bring their own power. We set that last year. If they bring their small nuclear reactors and we said that we encourage that. If they decide that is cost feasible for them, we want New Hampshire to be a place they can come. But the problem with this review is, it's targeting a single industry when we know, in fact, that ski areas are huge energy cost. And they hit it during peak hours, which drives up our energy cost across the entire state. But we accept it because it's part of our tourism industry. Manufacturing, huge energy consumers. Again, we accept it because we want the jobs that they have, right? But we're not looking at these other large-scale power consumers and what we're going to do with them and make them jump through extra hoops for doing it. While this data center review process might be good for large-scale power consumers, we probably should look at holistically and not target a single industry. So again, I think we should vote down this amendment. If someone wants to bring a bill next year to talk about large-scale power consumers and requiring a power review, that's up to them, but we shouldn't be targeting this one industry at this time. Thank you.
Okay. We are on the adoption of floor amendment 0352. Are there any further questions or anyone wish to speak? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. 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 The noes have it, and the amendment has failed. So the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 439. Are you ready for the question? A roll call has been requested by Senator Altshuler, seconded by Senator Fenton.
Senator Perkins.
Oh, Senator Perkins-Coca, seconded by Senator Fenton. Okay. Yes. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
Nope.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
Could you?
Oh, yes.
I can't, okay.
Just couldn't hear you over the
Senator
whistles.
Fenton.
No.
Senator McHugh.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins-Coca.
No.
Senator Abbas.
Yes.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Yes.
16-8.
The ayes have it by a vote of 16-8, and the motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 400, an act relative to duties and reporting requirements of the Therapeutic Cannabis Medical Oversight Board. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 4-0. Senator Gannon for the committee.
Senator Gannon.
Thank you very much. My fans are loud outside. Apologize. SB 400 amends the reporting requirements of the Therapeutic Cannabis Medical Oversight Board. It does this by requiring regular review of available scientific data and evidence relevant to the approved qualifying conditions. Citations shall be included in these reviews, and the amendment would change the annual review requirement to a biannual review requirement. Biennial. I did it wrong. That's how we got here. It's supposed to be biennial. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Senator Gannon is recognized for a floor amendment.
But I do want to move it. Okay. Senator Gannon would like to offer floor amendment 0258, even though we forgot about it. Thank you.
You may speak to your amendment.
I'm speaking. I'm all set. Well, okay, I'll tell you what it's about. So in committee.
Can you stand?
Yes,
Senator?
ma'am. I'm
Thank you.
sorry. In committee, there was confusion when it got taken down by our aides, the word biennial and biennial. Biennial, probably because my diction is not clear enough. But anyways, biennial review is reviewing it every other year, and that's what the committee was after.
Thank you, Senator. Floor amendment number 0258S has been proposed. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of floor amendment 0258S. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 400. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that all bills and resolutions ordered to a third reading be, by this resolution, read a third time, all titles be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The early session is adjourned. We are now in the late session. Are there any announcements to come before the Senate? Okay. Seeing none. Is there any further business? Seeing none. I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the business of the day being completed, that the Senate recess to the call of the chair for the purposes of introducing legislation, referring bills to committee, scheduling hearings, sending and receiving messages, vacating bills, processing enrolled bill reports and amendments, and forming committees of conference, and when we recess to the call of the chair.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The Senate is in recess to the call of the chair.